Chapter 1438. Behind Wang Su the phantom became clearer. It was a palm and the patterns on it were clearly visible. It set off Wang Su, giving her a sacred aura. When he saw this, the word imprint suddenly popped up in Lu Yin's mind. Was there an imprint in this universe? No, an imprint was meant to imprint a person, but this was a palm? Lu Tianmu and the rest were shocked. The moment the phantom palm appeared, Wang Su's entire person had changed. She had easily blocked the hollow palm. Her strength had undergone a qualitative change. Opposite them, Lu Hao exclaimed. The visualization technique that originally belonged to the Lu family was divided up by the 4 cardinal scales to create the 4 junior ancestors. Is this the power of visualization? Wu Tianmu heard him. The Lu family? She looked at Lu Yin. Long Tian and the rest retreated. Wang Su had already used the power that only the junior ancestor had grasped, so it was time for this farce to end. What they needed to do now was wait for Long 7 to be defeated so that they could snatch the origin item. Long Shi's face turned pale. She had seen and experienced the visualization technique before, which was why she was certain that the junior ancestor was invincible. Even if she broke through the lower threshold, even if she was given a tribulation crystal pillar to break through the middle threshold and reach the same realm as the junior ancestor, it would be useless. Only the junior ancestor of the 4 cardinal scales could cultivate visualization. In the entire cosmic tree realm, there were only a handful of people who could do so. This was a power that belonged solely to the Lu family, a power that belonged to the master of a continent, but it had been divided up by the 4 cardinal scales. Lu Yin sized up the current Wang Su. The phantom behind this woman was not an imprint, but rather the same as the tree phantom behind Yuhua Mavis. Could it be the same power? Wang Su's body suddenly disappeared and Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Not good. She had broken into the astral source universe at extreme speed. Without thinking, Lu Yin took out a drop of spring water and dripped it into his eyes. At the same time he retreated. When he opened his eyes he saw Wang Su's cold eyes on his right, but he pretended not to see her. Wang Su circled around Lu Yin and appeared behind him. She waved her hand and used the 4 uniques technique, Skyblade. Lu Yin executed his greater teleportation array and circled behind Wang Su. He then raised both hands and struck out with his emptiness palm continuously. Wang Su had not expected Lu Yin to be able to see her movements. She turned around and struck out consecutively as well. Bang 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 bang. Dozens of explosions sounded as their palms collided, tearing the void apart. The power of the collision was more than 500,000 combat power, leaving invisible light when Yi and the others speechless. Long Qi was shocked. Long Qi was as strong as the young ancestor? With a boom the 2 palms collided once again. Both Lu Yin and Wang Su retreated at the same time, panting heavily. Wang Su was astonished. Even after using the visualization technique he still wasn't able to suppress Sun Mo? This person's strength had definitely reached the level of a junior ancestor. Lu Yin's palm hurt. This woman's palm was fierce and domineering and he didn't know what she'd added to it. She didn't seem to be at a disadvantage when it collided with his emptiness palm. Fortunately she wasn't able to suppress him. This battle reminded him of his battle with Wang Yi. Their strength was almost equal and it would be difficult to determine the victor in a short period of time. At this moment, everyone had an unspoken rule, and that was to not use any external objects. Among those of the same generation who didn't want to suppress everyone, Lu Yin had displayed a strength that was enough to fight against Wang Su, and this caused Long Tian's expression to turn extremely ugly. He had been played. This Long Qi possessed such strength, yet he had been treating Long Tian as a joke from the start. How detestable. Bai Xiaohong's originally relaxed attitude turned serious. There was actually someone with such strength in the wastelands? He thought about it and looked at Shangqing. This person wasn't weak either. He hadn't expected that after an epoch, the wastelands would produce more and more elites. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. This wasn't good. He had to deal with this when he returned. Shangqing's eyes narrowed. Even if he and Lu Yin delayed the 2 junior ancestors, the other 2 could easily deal with Zhou Xian and the rest. It was impossible for them to break out of the encirclement in their current state. Wang Su, end this quickly. Bai Xiaohong suddenly charged over and pressed down with one hand. Secret technique. Cloud descent. Wang Su didn't stop him as this wasn't the time for a fair battle. Lu Yin frowned when the two junior ancestors joined forces. How troublesome. Xianxia hurriedly waved his hand, and progenitor Qin leaped forward, but he was blocked by Long Tian. Not only did Long Tian block progenitor Qin, but he also wanted to attack Xianxia. A spear shot out from the void. Xianxia didn't have any spring water, so he couldn't see Long Tian's attack coming from the astral source universe. However, progenitor Hui could help him evade the attack, and he also gave Long Tian a sealed source box array. The sealed source box array wasn't that easy to break free from, so Xianxia made his move. Do you think you can stop the two of us by yourself? As he spoke, his divine martial force swept out, and Xianxia once again dodged under progenitor Hui's guidance. However, this space was only so big and there was no way for him to dodge. In the end, he was still injured by Xianxia's area of effect attack, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Progenitor Qin slashed at Xianxia from behind, but Xianxia turned around and raised his hand. Secret technique, reverse. As soon as he spoke, progenitor Qin's entire body actually retreated. At this moment, Long Tian's white dragon transformation broke free of the sealed source box array, and his spear pierced through progenitor Qin's body, turning him into a stream of air. Xianxia coughed up another mouthful of blood. He could fight one junior ancestor by himself, but he couldn't fight two of them at once. In the distance, Lu Yin was also in trouble. Bai Xiaohong's cloud descent hadn't been able to trap him, but Bai Xiaohong had never thought of trapping him. After Lu Yin had used the secret art of plan to evade, Bai Xiaohong had immediately found him and pointed at the void. Split the heavens. A black line streaked across, slicing through the void. Lu Yin's face paled as the secret art was useless. This was a progenitor battle technique, and he hurriedly tried to use his teleportation array. However, he had already exposed many of his techniques during his battle with Wang Su. His teleportation array had been forcefully disrupted by Wang Su's star energy, and he had also just used the secret art of plan. He had no choice but to face Split the Heavens head-on. Bai Xiaohong had absolute confidence that Split the Heavens would be enough to cut this person in half at the waist unless he used a power vessel. However, even if he did, Bai Xiaohong was prepared. Lu Yin raised a hand and a flow diversion diagram appeared. Split the Heavens slashed horizontally at the diagram, which was capable of diverting power, domains, battle techniques, and even more bizarre attacks. However, it collapsed upon contact with Split the Heavens. Behind the diagram was the Fates, but it was also cut apart and returned to Lu Yin's body. These two defenses had helped Lu Yin hold on for another second, but that was enough. When he had used the secret art of plan to evade the attack, he had chosen to attack Gui Qian. Gui Qian wasn't too far away from Lu Yin, and he stared blankly at everything that had happened. Even someone as sinister as him wanted to curse at this moment, as he was also within range of Split the Heavens. He had been cut in half by Split the Heavens outside the Spirit Void Temple, and he could still remember that feeling. Now it was happening again. Just as Gui Qian was about to take out a power vessel to defend himself, Lu Yin took a step forward and arrived beside him. He pressed down on Gui Qian's shoulder with one hand. "Let me borrow your death aura." Gui Qian was stunned. "What did you say?" As soon as he spoke, the death aura around his body rapidly flowed towards Lu Yin. At the same time, the death aura within his body flowed towards Lu Yin at an even faster rate and was absorbed by him. Gui Qian was dumbfounded. Who else could use death aura aside from Gui Yuan? This was death aura, and it wasn't any ordinary power. This guy could actually absorb it, and he didn't even know how. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. What? The moment he touched Lu Yin, he felt like he was being suppressed. This was what it felt like to be suppressed by the top. Gui Qian was certain that he hadn't heard wrong. Long Seven had just said that he wanted to borrow death aura, and then his own death aura had been uncontrollably sucked away. This was something that completely subverted his worldview. Other than the practitioners of the Ghost Abyss, no one else should be able to cultivate the death aura. Moreover, even if it was a practitioner of the Ghost Abyss, no one in his generation could absorb his death aura. Not to mention his peers, even an envoy-level practitioner of the death aura would not be able to absorb his death aura. But Long Seven had done it. What the hell? Gui Qian was dumbfounded. Lu Yin could have left earlier, but he'd stayed because he'd clearly sensed that he'd absorbed a bit of death chi when Gui Qian had first attacked. This was something he wanted to confirm. He wanted to see if he could absorb death chi. Reality proved that he could. As Gui Qian's death aura entered his body, split the heavens drew closer and closer. At Lu Yin's chest, the black and white mist that had been reduced by a lot surged, merging with the death aura and rapidly spreading throughout his body. Under the astonished gazes of the Xianxia and the others, a black and white cocoon formed around Lu Yin's body. Split the heavens slashed directly at the cocoon, but it didn't break. However, Split the heavens didn't disappear either. It seemed to be in a stalemate. 2 seconds later, the black and white cocoon split open, and Lu Yin's appearance changed completely. His eyes were pure black, his hair fell to his waist, and his upper body was half naked. Black gas swirled around his body like a spinning nebula, turning into chains that spiraled around him. His body was branded with an incomprehensible dark red pattern, and his left arm was wrapped in white gas, forming a shield. His right hand held a giant goggle, and the black gas behind him rose like a cloud, occasionally forming a pair of eyes that were still and emotionless. This was the Grim Reaper transformation. The Xianxia and the others felt their scalps go numb when they saw Lu Yin's appearance. He had appeared in the final battle of the Sovereign Tournament. A feeling of despair once again enveloped them. In that battle, everyone had worked together, but they hadn't been able to defeat this Lu Yin. No, they hadn't even been able to make him move a single step. This was the true strength of the Fifth Mainland Sovereign. The Xianxia and the others had been shocked after seeing it once, so there was no need to mention Bai Xiaohong and the others. At this moment they were all dumbfounded as they stared at Lu Yin. What the hell? Wang Su stared closely at Lu Yin's appearance. It was so familiar, as if he had seen or heard of it somewhere before. Lu Yin looked up, his pure black eyes sweeping over Bai Xiaohong. Bai Xiaohong's heart trembled as an indescribable feeling of fear welled up within him. It was as if he was being suppressed by an indescribable existence. The one who felt this feeling the most was Gui Qian. The moment Lu Yin appeared in the Grim Reaper transformation, Gui Qian's brain felt like it was about to explode. No one understood this form better than Gui Yuan. This was the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper wasn't a legend. Even though everyone thought it was just a legend, Gui Yuan knew that an ancient ancestor had truly existed. He had been a true unparalleled powerhouse that had surpassed humanity's understanding of progenitors. He wasn't someone that the 4 cardinal scales inheritances could compare to. Only the Lu family, which had once ruled over this part of the universe, could. The Grim Reaper's inheritance had actually appeared in the Fifth Mainland, in the hands of a stowaway in an abandoned land. This was the level that Gui Yuan had always wanted to reach, but it had seemed so far away. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Thank you. End of chapter. Chapter 1439. When the black and white cocoon shattered, split the heavens slashed towards Lu Yin's face. Lu Yin raised his left arm and white gas formed a shield that blocked split the heavens. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. What a terrifying attack. Even he felt a little pressure, but it was only a little. After all, it was a progenitor battle technique, and even a secret technique could not divert it. With a whoosh, Lu Yin exerted force with his left arm and flung split the heavens away. Bai Xiaohong's pupils shrank. How was this possible? Split the heavens was actually blocked by someone of the same generation? Long Tian and the rest looked at Lu Yin and felt a chill in their hearts. It was as if they were facing the Grim Reaper. Lu Yin gripped the giant Golian tightly and slashed at Bai Xiaohong. I'll return it to you. Bai Xiaohong faced the Golian's slash head-on. His subconscious sense of danger made him use his full strength. Just like Wang Su, a phantom image appeared behind him. It was a small pond. As the phantom image appeared, Bai Xiaohong raised his hand and tapped out with Immortal guides the way. At the same time, the pond's water was rapidly depleted. Extreme coldness descended. This was the true Immortal guides the way of the cold Immortal sect. The power of a single finger was enough to pierce through the void. Lu Yin's Golian slashed head-on with Immortal guides the way. Terrifying shockwaves swept out in all directions, shattering the void. Lu Yin had thought that this slash would be able to injure Bai Xiaohong, but he had underestimated the young ancestor, a top disciple of the cold Immortal sect. This slash was blocked by Immortal guides the way. However, much of the water in the pond behind Bai Xiaohong had been depleted. How many more slashes can you block? Lu Yin growled. He raised the Golian again and slashed horizontally. This time he was not only targeting Bai Xiaohong but also Wang Su. He was truly going to fight 1 against 2. Bai Xiaohong could not believe that a stowaway from an abandoned land was actually stronger than him. I'll block it. You attack. Wang Su did not hesitate and his figure flashed into the astral source universe. Lu Yin had used up the exquisite lake's spring water, so he could not see the astral source universe. However, did he need to see it? Black beams of light appeared from all directions and wrapped around Lu Yin. This was the Wang family's secret technique, restriction. Lu Yin raised his left hand and grabbed the black chains that coiled around him like a nebula. He then swept them all around him. The forbidden technique was shattered and Wang Su walked out from the astral source universe. The phantom palms behind his back congealed and he sent a palm strike at Lu Yin. It was as if two palms were descending. The palm froze the moment it entered the black gas surrounding Lu Yin's body. Wang Su was astonished. How was this possible? Lu Yin turned around and Go Lian slashed diagonally. Wang Su waved his left hand, using the Four Ultimates technique, Sky Blade. With a bang, Sky Blade shattered, but Go Lian's speed didn't change as Lu Yin continued to slash down diagonally. Ripples appeared on Wang Su's body as she used her secret technique, Zenith. The power of the supreme secret technique was terrifying. Even Bai Xiaohong and the others were wary of it. Previously, Lu Yin had relied on reciting the Stonewall scriptures to break free from the suppression of the Zenith secret technique, but this time he was caught off guard and was instantly suppressed by the technique. However, it was only for an instant and Wang Su quickly retreated. Lu Yin looked up again and the Golian slashed out again. Blood splattered everywhere as Wang Su was injured. Bai Xiaohong appeared behind him. Split the heavens. Another split the heavens was unleashed, but this time, its power was even greater than the previous one. Bai Xiaohong's strength had increased once again by relying on his visualization technique, so Lu Yin had to be cautious. Go Lian turned around and slashed out in a huge arc, enveloping everyone within. The entire void was sliced apart. Shangqing, Zhou Xian and the others had been cautious when Lu Yin had used the Grim Reaper's transformation. The last match of the Sovereign Tournament had left a deep impression on them, and they knew that Lu Yin was different from his usual self. His actions leaned towards the dark side and they were afraid of being implicated. The moment Lu Yin slashed out with Go Lian, Shangqing and the others immediately fell to the ground without hesitation. They rejoiced at their actions as this fellow would definitely implicate them all. Go Lian slashed through the void, causing Long Tian's expression to change. A phantom python appeared behind him, also using visualization power. As for Xianxia, the phantom of a long blade appeared behind him. The four junior ancestors were using their full strength. Under Go Lian's slash, the four junior ancestors simultaneously moved to block it. The others either fell to the ground or allowed the junior ancestors to stand in front of them. Only Dong He was in a situation where no one could defend him, but he had not been able to crouch down in time. The Go Lian slashed past him and his head fell to the ground. Bai Xiaohong's eyes widened in anger. Dong He had been a top disciple of the frigid Immortal sect, second only to himself, but he had actually died. Long 7, I'll have you pay with your life. Bai Xiaohong didn't seem to have done anything, but Lu Yin suddenly saw Night King Zhenwu laughing maniacally. You can't beat me, Lu Yin. You'll never be able to beat me. Look at yourself and your people. I'll kill them all one by one. This is what happens when you oppose the Day-Night royal family. The next moment, Ming Yen suddenly appeared with tears in her eyes. Brother Lu, father is dead and I don't want to implicate you. Let me go. She then swallowed the poison of life in her hand. Blood drained from Lu Yin's face. No. He walked forward, wanting to stop Ming Yen from swallowing the poison of life. But even though he was only a few steps away, he felt like he was at the end of the world. He would never be able to touch Ming Yen at this moment, and he could only watch as the poison of life entered her mouth and she died. Lu Yin felt an intense pain in his chest and he heard someone's roar. Suddenly, his mind trembled and Ming Yen disappeared from his sight. He could clearly see his surroundings, but there was no light calling out to him. In front of him, Progenitor Qin and Progenitor Hui were blocking Xianxia and Long Tian. He lowered his head and saw that his chest was bleeding. Was he injured? Zhou Xian heaved a sigh of relief. The god burst had pulled Lu Yin back to reality and he looked at Bai Xiaohong in horror. He did not know what this person had done to cause Lu Yin to fall into an illusion. No, it couldn't be called an illusion as it had not been a spiritual force attack. However, Lu Yin had indeed lost his mind, and he had been struck by split the heavens without any resistance. Bai Xiaohong pointed at the void again and stared at Lu Yin. You can't escape. The blood in Lu Yin's chest stopped flowing. He did not know what Bai Xiaohong had done, but if it had not been a spiritual force attack, then it had to be a secret technique or an innate gift. The frigid Immortal sect had countless inheritances, and Lu Yin's fear of Bai Xiaohong had risen to a whole new level. Split the heavens. A phantom line extended towards Lu Yin in front of Bai Xiaohong. At the same time he looked at Lu Yin again. If he had succeeded once, then he could succeed a second time. This was his innate gift, heart. It was not a spiritual force attack, but rather an unavoidable one. Bai Xiaohong would either see the person he hated the most or the person he loved the most. Lu Yin sighed and recited the Stonewall scriptures in his mind. When faced with such a strange attack, the Stonewall scriptures would be able to defend against half of it. Another scene appeared in front of him, this time with a finger descending. Boundless rage surged into Lu Yin's mind and he almost shouted, "How dare you!" At the last moment the Stonewall scriptures pulled him out of the illusion. He heard the shouts of Invisible Light and the others, and not too far away Zhou Xian had been injured by someone. Otherwise he would have used another divine explosion. Split the heavens was right in front of him and Lu Yin suddenly attacked. He slashed out with Golian, split the heavens in two. Bai Xiaohong watched in shock as Lu Yin slashed out with Golian again. This time Bai Xiaohong was unable to escape. A huge slash started from his neck and spread to his legs. His entire upper body was cut open and blood gushed out. Junior Patriarch. Dong Shan roared and leapt to Bai Xiaohong's side. Lu Yin did not stop there and he slashed out with Golian again. However, this attack was blocked by a spear. It was Long Tian, and a phantom of the ancestral python appeared behind him. The white dragon's body was covered in dense draconic patterns, and it stared at Lu Yin with a scorching gaze. This is the Grim Reaper. I remember now. Long 7, come back to the clan with me. Idiot, Lu Yin said. Golian pressed down with force, causing the spear to crack. At the same time his left hand gripped the black nebula chain and smashed it towards Long Tian. Long Tian raised a hand and grabbed at the nebula chain. Lu Yin had not expected that he would actually be able to grab it, and he had actually lost control of the chain for a moment. This was the first time something like this had happened and he looked at Long Tian in shock. Long Tian's gaze was cold. You underestimate us too much. At that moment, Long Shi's voice rang out in Lu Yin's ears. Big Bro's innate gift isn't spatial, it's grabbing. He can grab anything including space. Lu Yin was astonished. There was such an innate gift? The chain was grabbed by Long Tian, and Lu Yin slashed out with Golian. Behind him Xiaoxin Fei appeared. Reverse, and Lu Yin's slash returned to its original position. Lu Yin was disgusted. It was this move again. Xiaoxin Fei waved his hand, and star energy enveloped Lu Yin. Although it wasn't an attack, this action scared Long Tian so much that he immediately retreated. Lu Yin instinctively felt that something was wrong, and Long Shi's voice rang out in his ears again. Xiaoxin Fei's innate gift allows him to relive the past. He can recreate any pain you've experienced, whether it's your soul or your body. Lu Yin's scalp went numb. Each of these fellows' innate gifts was stranger than the last. This was the junior ancestor's strength, and it was no wonder that no one else could catch up to him. Xiaoxin Fei's star energy enveloped him, and his innate gift was about to be revealed. Lu Yin couldn't avoid it, so he pulled someone else in, Shangqing. Blood spurted out in front of Lu Yin as a large wound appeared on his chest. This wound was the same one that Progenitor Qin had used to attack him during the Sovereign Tournament when he had been trapped by the Source Box Array. This attack had made Shangqing think that the battle was over, but he had activated the Reaper's transformation. Now this attack had appeared and it had originated from Xiaoxin Fei. Shangqing's past also appeared, and it was Lu Tianmu's 13th sword. Shangqing had rarely been injured, and the 13th sword had left the deepest impression on him. Xiaoxin Fei's innate gift allowed him to experience it once more, and blood trickled down his lips. Punishment, Lu Yin growled. Shangqing was at a loss as to how he had been injured. He thought that Lu Tianmu had attacked, but when he heard Lu Yin's voice, he subconsciously used a secret technique, punishment. Punishment was the Hall of Honor's most disgusting secret technique, and it could perfectly reflect an attack. Xianxia was still at a loss as to why Lu Yin had dragged Xianxia over and injured both of them. All of a sudden he felt a sharp pain in his chest and he couldn't help but cough up blood. Was he injured? Where did this come from? This injury was familiar. Was it that woman's 13th sword? Xianxia looked at Lu Tianmu and found that he was being suppressed by Lu Hao. How could this be? Don't make me fight all four of you. Hold down one for me, Lu Yin said to Xianxia, and then the star chessboard appeared beneath his feet as he activated the secret plan. He was about to take the initiative to attack. I'll update at 3 in the afternoon and I'll stay up all night to write my story. Thank you for your support. Chapter 1440. Lu Yin appeared behind Long Tian. I've always wanted to tell you but you're full of crap. Go Lian slashed down and Long Tian tried to grab it, but he didn't realize that his entire body had been bound by the nebula chain. These weren't real chains but rather black death chi. The moment Long Tian appeared around Lu Yin he had been bound. With a hiss, Go Lian tore apart half of Long Tian's body, causing blood to splatter onto the ground. Long Tian's eyes widened and narrowed as his body fell to the ground. He stared at Lu Yin in disbelief. This person was actually so terrifying. He recalled all the things he had said to Lu Yin before. This guy had been toying with him all this time. Long Shi's face paled and she was also in disbelief. The junior ancestor was unrivaled among his peers in this part of the universe, and he had been nurtured, looked up to, and even worshipped by the entire universe. Who would have thought that he would be so easily injured by Long Qi? Who was this person? He was truly unrivaled among his peers. Lu Yin glanced at her. If not for Long Shi's sake, that slash would have taken Long Tian's life. He looked at Bai Xiaohong and raised Go Lian up high. Bai Xiaohong felt a chill run down his spine. He hadn't expected Lu Yin to be able to fight them alone. This strength was unacceptable and it had completely overturned his worldview. He wasn't the only one who was shocked. Xianxia and the others were as well. Based on Lu Yin's performance in the Sovereign Tournament he could indeed fight the junior ancestor alone, but it wouldn't be so exaggerated as to crush him. No one had expected Lu Yin's strength to improve so quickly. His battle force had reached 10 golden lines, and he had broken through several realms after consuming the dragon's saliva. His strength had soared once more and he had even suppressed the junior ancestor. Go Lian landed on the ground. Bai Xiaohong lifted his hand and tapped out with a finger. Immortal shows the way. At the same time the water in the pond behind him was completely depleted, forming the most powerful Immortal shows the way so far. In front of him fresh blood dripped down. Lu Yin's battle technique was broken through by Immortal guides the way. However, Bai Xiaohong had forgotten that before Lu Yin's Reaper transformation, he had also possessed the strength to fight against the junior ancestor. His left hand moved. Emptiness palm. Immortal guides the way pressed down on Bai Xiaohong, while Emptiness palm attacked Bai Xiaohong at an even faster speed. It wasn't just Bai Xiaohong. Xianxia, Wang Su and Long Tian were all struck by the Emptiness palm at the same time. The three of them had taken the full brunt of the Emptiness palm while in the Reaper's transformation state, and they all spat out mouthfuls of blood as they retreated. Bai Xiaohong had just been heavily injured by a single slash, and if the Emptiness palm struck him again he wasn't confident that he could survive. He had no choice but to use his power vessel to block the Emptiness palm with great difficulty. At the same time he shouted, "Don't hold back. Use your power vessel to deal with them." Lu Yin's strength put too much pressure on them. Even someone as proud as Bai Xiaohong had no choice but to use a power vessel in advance. This was tantamount to admitting defeat. As long as Lu Yin didn't die, Bai Xiaohong would be traumatized the next time he faced Lu Yin. Wang Su, Xianxia and Long Tian felt the same way. Lu Yin's strength while in the Reaper's transformation state was terrifying beyond imagination. Lu Yin raised a hand and blocked Immortal guides the way with the flow diversion diagram. As the diagram shattered, the remaining power of Immortal guides the way no longer posed a threat to Lu Yin. He was now more concerned about Bai Xiaohong's power vessels as well as the others. The hearts of Xianxia and the rest sank. It was time to compete for power vessels and this time it would depend on their foundations. How could their foundations compare to the junior ancestor of the four cardinal scales? Lu Yin relaxed when it came to competing for power vessels. The death chi that he had absorbed from Prince Guiqian was almost exhausted, so it would be even better for him to compete for power vessels. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. However, Lu Yin wasn't afraid. He didn't believe that Bai Xiaohong and the rest could take out more power vessels than he could. Ignoring everything else, just Mount Supreme was enough to suppress them. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot as they fought for the Genesis item, but they had forgotten that this was a trap. Since the humans' mortal enemies had set up such a trap, and they had even used the true Genesis item and the Tribulation Crystal Pillar as bait, how could it be broken so easily? When the four young ancestors simultaneously used their visualization powers, none of them noticed that the desiccated corpses that had been shattered at the beginning had miraculously recovered. When Bai Xiaohong took out his power vessel and prepared to end the battle, the source box array that he had buried underground suddenly fell into chaos. Lu Yin was the first to realize that something was wrong. He was an origin array master after all, and he had mastered many source box arrays. His control over star energy had reached the level of a world realm cultivator, so he immediately sensed that something was wrong. But it was already too late. The corpse opened its eyes and everyone suddenly froze. Then their gazes became dazed and they sat down cross-legged as if they had been controlled. Sitting oblivion, the ruins of oblivion hasn't been broken. Quick escape. Wang Su said with great difficulty. Only she, Bai Xiaohong and a few others barely maintained a bit of consciousness. They wanted to escape but they seemed to be struggling. Tongqing was the same. As for the others, they sat down cross-legged and didn't move at all. Lu Yin recited the Stonewall scriptures and barely maintained a bit more consciousness than Wang Su and the others. He looked up at the corpse, and the star-scattered chessboard appeared beneath his feet as he moved. His body vanished and then reappeared, moving to within 5 meters of the corpse. He locked gazes with the corpse and their consciousnesses fused together. The Grim Reaper transformation ended and his body returned to normal. The die had 6 pips. As long as he fused with someone once, he could fuse with them again as long as they were within 5 meters of him. This was Lu Yin's lifeline. He could use the secret art of plan to move around the corner and avoid the ruins of oblivion that Wang Su had mentioned. But if he left, what would happen to the others? This was especially true for Long Shi, who was his wife in name. He subconsciously didn't want to give her up. If he could fuse with the corpse, then he was confident that he could leave at any time. The problem now was how to bring the others away. Lu Yin fused with the corpse's consciousness and moved his hands. He could control them now. He was delighted. This was perfect. First it was himself. He controlled the corpse to stand up and carry his body on its back. He then approached Wang Su, who was the closest to him. He looked around with a guilty conscience. This place was a trap, so there shouldn't be anyone lying in ambush, right? There shouldn't be. If there was, then there wouldn't have been a need to use the ruins of oblivion. Lu Yin subconsciously coughed, but he found that he couldn't do so while controlling the corpse's body. I'm sorry, but we're all enemies, so I can't do anything overboard. Besides, you can't leave this place, so there's no point in keeping these things. Lu Yin comforted himself as he took Wang Su's cosmic ring, cut her finger, and dripped a drop of blood into it. He then began to frantically sweep through the contents. It was time to collect his spoils of war and he was a little excited. This was the only thing he could do, which was to save these people. They definitely wouldn't be grateful to him, and at least he was sure that Bai Xiaohong and Long Tian wouldn't. There was also that Crown Prince Zhou Xian who was filled with a sinister aura. Lu Yin couldn't treat his own life as a joke and he couldn't do anything to them. Humanity's enemies had schemed and trapped everyone in this strange place. If he killed Bai Xiaohong, Long Tian and the others, then it would be the same as helping those monsters. He couldn't save them, but he couldn't harm them either. He could only maintain the status quo, and those things could be considered compensation for not harming them. This chapter is not finished. Please continue reading. Lu Yin had thought that Wang Su's cosmic ring had a lot of star essence, but he was disappointed when he took a look. There were at most a few dozen million star essence, which might be enough for the others, but it was too little for him. Aside from the star essence, there were many other personal items in her cosmic ring, but Lu Yin wasn't interested and just glanced through them. Wait, a hairpin attracted his attention. He frowned and took it out to take a closer look. Lu Yin was secretly delighted as it was actually a lock-breaking tool. This was interesting. A lock-breaking tool was actually a hairpin? It seemed to be similar to someone else's. Lu Yin had almost slipped away when he wasn't paying attention, so he placed it on the ground and continued looking through it. He found some white papers. What was this? Why was there paper in the cosmic ring? It shouldn't be ordinary. He took it out, placed it on the ground and continued searching. Finally, he found a small knife that was similar to the one he had used to destroy the circle during the battle, but there were some differences. This knife was the only power vessel in the entire cosmic ring, and Lu Yin didn't need to guess to know that it wasn't simple. He took it out and the sharp aura almost blinded him. It was definitely a powerful power vessel. Lu Yin put it away without any hesitation. Next he went to East River. That guy was already dead, so Lu Yin carried his own body and walked over. He took off the cosmic ring and dripped a drop of blood into it before sweeping through the contents. There weren't many star essence in East River's cosmic ring, and Lu Yin only found some pills and power vessels, but they weren't anything special. There were also some white papers. What was this? Lu Yin saw a bottle filled with red powder with the words pepper written on the outside. Lu Yin was speechless. Pepper? Was this for real? Who would carry pepper around with them? He thought of Silver, who claimed to be a gourmet and always carried seasonings with him. This East River guy actually had seasonings as well. Lu Yin subconsciously put it away. No matter how small a fly was, it was still meat, so he continued. Lu Yin began to sweep through the rings one by one, but of course he only targeted his enemies. He couldn't kill people he was familiar with like Obscurus and the others. They were lucky, but Lu Yin felt that it was a pity. From Yun Tingting, Lu Yin had obtained some star essence healing pills, a few power vessels that weren't very useful and some cigarettes. These cigarettes were very mysterious and should have been Yun Tingting's final trump card. Lu Yin took them without hesitation. As for Wen Shixi, he didn't find anything except a pile of books and ink. Lu Yin pursed his lips. Wen Shixi's attitude towards him had always been good, so Lu Yin decided to let him off since he didn't have anything good to show for it. He looked around and saw that it was Crown Prince Gui Qian's turn. This guy had contributed too much to Lu Yin, and if it weren't for him, the black and white fog in Lu Yin's chest wouldn't have been enough for him to use the Reaper transformation for long. However, this guy had also exposed Lu Yin, and if it weren't for him, Lu Yin would have been able to continue pretending to be Long Qi. Although he wouldn't have been able to keep up the act for long, it wouldn't have stopped Gui Qian from exposing Lu Yin's crimes. Lu Yin felt a little grateful, but of course he was also a little angry. He didn't stand on ceremony and took the giant tribulation crystal pillar from Gui Qian's cosmic ring. He swept through the star essence and other items, but there was one item that caught his attention the most. A skeleton that seemed to belong to a beast. The moment he took it out, Lu Yin felt waves of pressure. This skeleton wasn't simple, so he took it away. Lu Yin walked over to Xianxia, feeling a little resentful towards him. This guy's secret technique was too disgusting and it forced people to go against their will. He was simply shameless. Xianxia's cosmic ring was filled with wine, and Lu Yin's first thought was of wine. How? These two were a perfect match. End of chapter. Chapter 1441. Aside from the wine, there was also something that looked like a doll that caught Lu Yin's attention. He looked at it seriously and his expression turned serious. This was probably Xianxia's most well-hidden trump card. He took it away. Next up was Long Tian. Lu Yin walked up and slapped him viciously on the head. This guy was just too talkative. Lu Yin took off his cosmic ring and stored everything inside. There were many things, but most of them were useless. The only thing that caught Lu Yin's interest was a spear with a green gelatinous substance attached to it. Who knew what it was? He took it away and slapped Long Tian again before leaving. Right, I almost forgot. Lu Yin looked at Long Shi, remembering that Xia Tyli's cosmic ring was still in her hands. He hadn't had a chance to return it to Xianxia, so he searched for it and found it. That water plant power vessel wasn't bad either. Finally, Lu Yin arrived in front of Bai Xiaohong. This was the real deal. Bai Xiaohong wasn't just a simple matter of plundering. Lu Yin's consciousness returned to his body, and in the blink of an eye, that bewildering power that made him lose his sense of self spread to his mind once more. He recited the Stonewall scriptures and resisted the corrosion as he quickly attacked. He unleashed 5 palm strikes in a row, and 4 of them crippled Bai Xiaohong's limbs. The 5th palm struck Bai Xiaohong's chest, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Lu Yin exhaled and quickly returned to his mummy. He carried his own body and dragged Bai Xiaohong to a corner. When Bai Xiaohong was thrown around the corner, he suddenly came to his senses. His many years of battle experience made him want to dodge, but both his arms and legs had been crippled by Lu Yin. He had also taken a palm strike and was heavily injured before, so he almost fell down. Lu Yin's consciousness returned to his own body, and when he saw Bai Xiaohong's body sway, he reached out to grab him. The other young ancestors liked this, so Lu Yin wanted to do the same. Bai Xiaohong regained consciousness and saw Lu Yin attack him. He wanted to resist, but his injuries were too severe. Just as he was about to take something out of his cosmic ring, he realized that it wasn't in his hand. Lu Yin grabbed Bai Xiaohong's neck and fiddled with the ring with his left hand. "You're looking for this?" Bai Xiaohong stared at Lu Yin, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth in disbelief. "How are you fine? How did you escape the meditative ruins?" "What's the meditative ruins?" Lu Yin asked. Bai Xiaohong sneered. "A wasteland is a wasteland. You don't even know about the meditative ruins." Lu Yin frowned as his left knee slammed into Bai Xiaohong's stomach. Star energy erupted from Bai Xiaohong's body and transformed into a finger, but the finger dissipated as soon as it appeared. Although Bai Xiaohong had reached the world level in terms of star energy control and was capable of setting up source boxes and arrays, there was no way that he could compare to Lu Yin when he was injured. Lu Yin's knee still landed on Bai Xiaohong's stomach, causing him to bend over and cough violently. All he coughed up was blood. Lu Yin looked down from above. Bai Xiaohong's body swayed and he finally couldn't hold on any longer. He collapsed to the ground, his limbs bleeding from the intense movements. He gritted his teeth and glared at Lu Yin with bloodshot eyes. "Do you know what you're doing? You're just an ant from a wasteland and you dare attack me? Don't you know that the frigid immortal sect can destroy your wasteland at any time? We've allowed you to exist for so many years out of pity, that's all. I can ask the ancestor to attack your abandoned land at any time and destroy everything." Lu Yin looked at him calmly. "Are you threatening me? If I'm afraid, I can take your life at any time." Bai Xiaohong's eyes went wide. "You wouldn't dare." Lu Yin was amused. Long Tian and Bai Xiaohong were all the same. Long Tian had always looked down on Lu Yin and had always ordered him around. Bai Xiaohong was the same when it came to others. This was the junior ancestor, someone who had been groomed by the resources of the Cosmic Tree sect and had also been praised by the sect. Even though Lu Yin had never interacted with Wang Su or Xia Shenfei before, he was certain that even if the two of them weren't as obvious, they were still the same deep down. This was especially true for people from the abandoned wastelands, as they had a natural sense of superiority. "The frigid immortal sect will definitely know of my death, and they'll definitely guess that I died at the hands of stowaways like you. No one in this region of space would dare to risk starting a war with the frigid immortal sect to kill me. Only you ants. If you dare to kill me, the wasteland will become a true purgatory." Bai Xiaohong threatened loudly. Lu Yin squatted down and met Bai Xiaohong's eyes. "Then tell me, how did the Cosmic Tree sect, which is the frigid immortal sect, attack the wasteland? Do you have a way to get there?" Bai Xiaohong stared at Lu Yin. "I know you're trying to get information out of me, so I won't hesitate to tell you. Of course we do. With your status, you should be at the top of your generation in the wasteland, so you should know about the existence of the three doors. Behind them is our region of space and on the other side is your wasteland." Lu Yin raised his brows in surprise. Was Bai Xiaohong really that stupid or just pretending to be? Or was he just bluffing? The three doors were not connected to the fifth mainland but rather to those monsters. Once the three doors were opened, the three doors had already been opened. Otherwise, the battle on the other side of the mother tree would not have been so intense. This was what Guishan had said. This guy was definitely bluffing, but that couldn't be right. Bai Xiaohong clearly knew about Lu Yin's status. So how could he not know that the three doors had been opened by those monsters? Could it be that the true location of the three doors was a secret? Bai Xiaohong only knew of their existence, but he did not know where they were. This was clearly a bluff. Lu Yin thought about it. Guishan had said that the battle on the other side of the mother tree was intense, but he had not mentioned the existence of the three doors. Lu Yin had just guessed where the three doors were. If anyone in the starry sky fruit tree knew the location of the three gates, then the fifth mainland would not have been so peaceful for so many years. Someone had already entered the fifth mainland. It was an abandoned land and it was also a forbidden land for this part of the starry sky. So the question was, how had Wang Yi gotten to the fifth mainland? He had participated in the sovereign tournament through the technocracy, which meant that the Wang family had a secret passage to the fifth mainland. Otherwise, Bai Xiaohong would not have used the three doors as a bluff. The frigid immortal sect definitely did not have a way to get to the fifth mainland. Many thoughts flashed through Lu Yin's mind. Across from him, Bai Xiaohong thought that he had managed to bluff Lu Yin and relaxed. He then said coldly, "Although you injured me, you saved me from the meditative ruins. I'll accept this favor and pretend that nothing happened. I can also change your identity as a stowaway. Compared to the wasteland, I believe that you'd rather stay in this region of space and join my frigid immortal sect." Lu Yin found this funny. This guy was not stupid. If he tried to bluff Lu Yin while trying to rope him in, then he might actually be roped in by Bai Xiaohong. If even someone like Bai Xiaohong did not know the location of the three doors, then it proved that this region of space was very wary of the fifth and sixth mainlands. How could they allow Lu Yin to change his identity so easily? Bai Xiaohong's words made Lu Yin even more aware of the severity of his identity as a stowaway. "You still haven't told me what the meditative ruins are," Lu Yin asked. Bai Xiaohong frowned. "I said that I could help you change your identity and take me away from here. Not only can I help you join my frigid immortal sect, but I can also help you become a top disciple. You might even have a chance to reach the progenitor realm in the future. I won't steal your origin item either. Actually, my frigid immortal sect has one, but it's better if you can obtain it yourself. Let me ask you again, what is the meditative ruins?" Lu Yin ignored Bai Xiaohong's nonsense and focused on his questions. Bai Xiaohong barked, "Long Seven, do you really want to make an enemy out of me? Do you really know how terrifying my frigid immortal sect is?" Lu Yin suddenly reached out and grabbed Bai Xiaohong's hair. The originally handsome elite now looked like a stray dog. "My name is not Long Seven. My surname is Lu." Bai Xiaohong's eyes narrowed as if he had just heard something inconceivable. He stared at Lu Yin in shock. "What did you say? Your surname is Lu?" Lu Yin sneered. "Does this surname make you that uneasy?" The blood drained from Bai Xiaohong's face and he was more terrified than ever. He stared at Lu Yin in disbelief. "Impossible. You're a remnant of the Lu family? How is that possible? You can't be from that Lu family." He suddenly thought of something and continued, "You're from the abandoned lands and your surname is Lu. You have nothing to do with that Lu family. I'm from that Lu family, or else I wouldn't have been able to cultivate to this level." "I'm back," Lu Yin said in disappointment as he looked into the distance, seemingly reminiscing about the past. Bai Xiaohong roared, "Impossible. The Lu family has already been exiled. The entire bloodline of the Lu family was exiled back then. Even if there are remnants, they're still disciples of the Lu family. There can't be anyone with the surname Lu. You're lying to me." When he saw Bai Xiaohong's expression, Lu Yin knew that the man had been provoked. Had the Lu family really given Bai Xiaohong such a huge blow? Lu Yin then shouted, "If he's not from the Lu family, how could he have defeated you? Impossible. Even your ancestors were exiled. Not a single one of them could have been left behind." Bai Xiaohong roared, glaring at Lu Yin. "I'm right here. How is it impossible? Did you think that your plan was flawless? Your exile was completely ineffective." Lu Yin retorted, his eyes turning red. Bai Xiaohong roared, "The white dragon pushed the entire Lu family out to those monsters. Everyone with the surname Lu was there. That day was a day of celebration for the Lu family, but it was also the anniversary of their death. The four scales worked together, so how could the Lu family have returned? Not a single Lu was spared and everyone was exiled. You can't be from the Lu family." Lu Yin's heart trembled. Even though he had guessed it before, it still left him breathless. So there really was a Lu family in this part of the universe, and the four scales had worked together to push the white dragon to those monsters? Had they been exiled? "I'm from the Lu family. I'm back. The Lu family is back," Lu Yin said coldly. Bai Xiaohong's veins bulged and his hands clenched into fists. Even though he was crippled, he had temporarily recovered from his excessive excitement. He grabbed Lu Yin's clothes. "You're lying. If you're from the Lu family, then prove it." "Thank you for your support, brothers." "Thank you. Thank you." Book Friend 5421014 Stargazer Disciple Stargazer Chant Wine Rats Monkey Brother. I'll update more tomorrow. Chapter 1442. Lu Yin's eyes flashed, and he raised a hand to summon a platform that slowly rotated. The giant emperor's brand was engraved on it, and it looked ancient. When Bai Xiaohong saw the platform, he was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. "How is it? Can you prove my identity?" Lu Yin asked coldly. This was the most important piece of evidence to prove his identity. No matter how he had guessed before, there had been no direct proof that he was from the exiled Lu family in this region of space. He wanted to confirm his identity through Bai Xiaohong and understand the situation back then. Since he had been exiled, there was a chance that he could be brought back. Although the chances were slim, as long as there was a chance, Lu Yin would not give up. When Bai Xiaohong saw the general roll call platform, he was dumbfounded. He had received a huge blow, and he slowly looked up at Lu Yin. It was as if this was the first time he was seeing him. His gaze was strange, filled with disbelief and nostalgia, but most of all hatred, jealousy, and fear. I know who you are. Ah, you're back. You're really back. Ah. Bai Xiaohong laughed crazily as he stared at Lu Yin. Lu Yin grabbed him by the collar. Then tell me who I am. Bai Xiaohong laughed. I'm not stupid. You don't have any memories and you don't know anything about the Lu family. You don't know where you came from, who is waiting for you, or who is your enemy. Ah. You don't know anything. Do you know why you're still alive? It's because you're the saddest person alive. Ah. Lu Yin clenched his fists and stared into Bai Xiaohong's eyes. I don't think I'm sad. You're in my hands. As expected of you, you actually managed to fight your way back. But it's useless as everything is set in stone. No matter what you do, you can't resist. You're a stowaway now, and it looks like those ants in the abandoned land support you. So what? Even if they gather the entire abandoned land and fight their way to this region of space, so what? You can't resist the frigid immortal sect. You can't resist my sister, just like your brothers. Bai Xiaohong suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and his body split apart. He had committed suicide. Lu Yin had not expected Bai Xiaohong to commit suicide. He released his grip and watched as the corpse fell to the ground. As the junior patriarch of the frigid immortal sect, he was extremely proud and arrogant. Just now he had tried his best to save his life, and even put down his dignity to ask for peace. But now he had directly committed suicide, which showed how much he had suffered. Only when facing someone of the same level or even someone of a higher level, would they commit suicide. This was a common problem for such peerless figures. In Bai Xiaohong's eyes, Lu Yin had been nothing more than an ant in the abandoned lands. Even if he had the death god's inheritance, Lu Yin was still nothing in his eyes. In his eyes, Lu Yin was only worth one thing: take. Bai Xiaohong wanted to take everything from Lu Yin, including his origin item, secret techniques, and the death god's inheritance. However, everything had changed the moment the battle platform had appeared. Bai Xiaohong had let go of his arrogance and insufferably arrogance. He had given up on threatening Lu Yin and given up on seeking peace. His status had completely reversed, and he had looked at Lu Yin with more fear than hatred. Thus he had chosen to commit suicide. He knew that the moment the battle platform had appeared and Lu Yin had told him that his surname was Lu, he had no way out. Suicide was his only choice, as he didn't want to die at Lu Yin's hands. That's right, the general appointment platform. Lu Yin's face turned cold and he looked at Bai Xiaohong. My name, I appoint a general. As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Xiaohong's image was imprinted onto the general appointment platform. Lu Yin looked at Bai Xiaohong's corpse, his words echoing in his mind. He had revealed his surname to confirm his identity, and now he had indeed obtained a lot of information. He had also confirmed his identity, but there were still many questions that he had yet to ask. The Lu family, the 4 cardinal scales, and the white dragon turning over. These were just a small part of the truth, but there were even more mysteries. Bai Xiaohong had said that it was the Lu family's day of celebration. It was precisely because of this celebration that all the Lu family members had gathered and the Lu family had been exiled. So why the celebration? Who had directed all of this? Who had facilitated the 4 cardinal scales to join forces? Someone had to be in cahoots, otherwise how could the 4 cardinal scales have joined forces so easily? Even if the white dragon had turned over, how could it have pushed the Lu family away? If the Lu family had been able to force the 4 cardinal scales to join forces, then their strength was definitely above the 4 cardinal scales. Did they not have the ability to retaliate? What about the others? For example, what role did the Lu family and the seed garden play? Why was Bai Xiaohong so certain that he had lost his memories? Was the seal that he had encountered during his breakthrough related to this? Who had sealed him? There were too many things that Lu Yin wanted to know, and what he wanted to know the most was the identity of the enemy. who was the one who had orchestrated the Lu family's exile. This region of space contained too many of his secrets. After thinking about it for half a day, Lu Yin finally exhaled and imprinted all of the information he had learned into his mind. He then looked at his cosmic ring, but there was no point in thinking about it now. The truth would have to be investigated in the outside world, and the most important thing right now was the spoils of war. Bai Xiaohong's cosmic ring contained tens of millions of star essence, and these people's star essence provided Lu Yin with about 300 million star essence. Although it wasn't much, it wasn't a small amount either. Lu Yin looked at the fruit that had been stored in a box made of some sort of crystalline material. He felt an indescribable sense of familiarity, but he couldn't recall where he had seen this fruit before. If he had, then his memories would have been sealed as well. He put the fruit away and swept his gaze across the box. He saw a red flower that was alluring and beautiful. Lu Yin's body trembled. It was this flower. His Daoist 6 pips had entered someone's body when he had tried to search through the Lu family's memories. That person's head had exploded, and the last thing he had seen was a sky filled with red flowers. This was the flower he had been referring to. Lu Yin looked at the alluring red flower, but he didn't know why Bai Xiaohong was wearing it. He could only put it away for now. Finally, he took out a square metal plate from Bai Xiaohong's many other items. There were 4 lines on it. This was a source box array. Lu Yin was very sure that this metal plate was a source box array, and the 4 lines were very familiar. This feeling, could it be split the heavens? Had someone split the heavens into a source box array? If that was the case, then that person's attainments in array formations were too high. Lu Yin felt a wave of fear. Fortunately, Bai Xiaohong had not used this power vessel, or else Lu Yin might not have been able to withstand the attack. Even using the walnut power vessel would take time, and split the heavens would not have given him that time. Lu Yin put the cosmic ring back on Bai Xiaohong's finger and then organized the spoils of war that he had obtained from everyone. There were about 300 million star essence, and the most valuable items were the tribulation crystal pillars, the origin artifact, the knife and hairpin that Wang Su had given him, the spear that Long Tian had given him with the green gelatinous substance attached to it, Xianxia's doll, and Bai Xiaohong's metal plate source box array. There were also the 4 junior ancestors tokens and various other strange items. There were more than 200 pieces of white paper, but Lu Yin did not know what they were used for. Bai Xiaohong and the others, there were also some of them. After organizing the items, Lu Yin sighed with emotion. He had obtained many things from this trip to the ruler's realm, such as the tribulation crystal pillars and the battle technique, when things reach extremes. He wondered what Xianxia's doll was like. If it was not bad, then he could replace his universal armor. Lu Yin continued to merge his consciousness into the corpse and carried himself. He then dragged Bai Xiaohong back to the meditative ruins and placed Bai Xiaohong in the same position as the others so that no one would be able to tell that he was dead. Lu Yin then began to drag Obscurer and the others to the edge of the meditative ruins. Obscurer, Wu Taibai, Shangqing and Lu Tianmu all looked at Zhou Xian. Should they drag this guy out? Lu Yin hesitated for a moment, but eventually decided to drag him out. After all, this guy had used a divine explosion to awaken him during the previous battle. Otherwise, his injuries would have been even more severe. There were a total of 5 people and all of them were at the edge of the meditative ruins. Lu Yin placed the corpse to one side and returned his consciousness to his body. He then dragged all 5 of them out of the meditative ruins. The moment they left the ruins, all 5 of them woke up and subconsciously left their original positions. Lu Yin pursed his lips. We're safe. The 5 of them stood some distance away from each other and looked at each other. They then looked at Long Tian and the others in the meditative ruins before finally looking at Lu Yin. You're not affected by the meditative ruins? Wu Taibai was shocked. Lu Yin looked at him. You're from the Shenwu Plain. Why did you help us? Zhou Xian added, I find it strange as well. Xianxia said that you betrayed the Shenwu Plain. What did he mean by that? Wu Taibai shrugged. It's not considered betrayal. It's just that we have different aspirations. You've all seen the attitude of this universe towards the 5th mainland, but I don't think so. The 5th mainland has an inheritance that this universe is missing, and it's only there that we can obtain certain inheritances. If I stayed in the Shenwu Plain, I could only be Xianxia's junior brother. That's why I left. Just because of that. Lu Yin did not believe him. Wu Taibai asked, what do you think? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. How did you get to the sixth mainland? And how did you become the martial ancestor's disciple? Wu Taibai leaned against the wall. Brother Lu, are you interrogating me? Don't forget that I just helped you. I never harmed you from start to finish. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Even Bai Xiaohong did not know the locations of the three gates, so it was even more impossible for Wu Taibai to know. Then how had he gotten to the fifth mainland? Wait, how had he gotten to the sixth mainland? The fifth and sixth mainlands, the technocracy and the Wang family. Lu Yin seemed to understand something, but this was Wu Taibai's problem. What's the meditative ruins? The others were curious as well, as they had been unable to resist at all. Wu Taibai glanced around and said apprehensively, the Wang family has a battle technique called the meditative realm. As the name suggests, it can cause an enemy to forget everything as if they're just a shell. Complete mastery of the meditative realm is the meditative ruins, and this power can be applied to a certain area. He then looked at the nearby corpse. Of course, someone needs to activate it. If I'm not wrong, that corpse is the key to activating the meditative ruins. Invisible Light and the others had long since discovered the corpse. It was obvious that Lu Yin could control it, which made them feel strange. Thank you for the rewards, brothers. You're too awesome. Windborn stayed up late to write, and I'll update at 3 p.m. Thank you for your support. Chapter 1443. Lu Yin didn't try to hide it. I once cultivated a technique to control puppets, so I can control this corpse. He then turned to Wu Taibai and asked, so you're saying that if we destroy the corpse, the meditative ruins will disappear? Wu Taibai sighed. In theory, yes, but don't forget that this place is a trap. Everyone followed the map here, and the map came from Zhou Xian. That Zhou Xian should be a redback, so this must be a trap set by those monsters. If it's so easy to destroy, how can it still be a trap? The corpse was destroyed in the beginning because it was part of the trap. The activation condition of this trap should be the visualization power of the four young ancestors or a certain level of strength. Everyone listened in silence. I suspect that if we destroy the corpse now, not only will we not be able to save them, but we might even kill them, Wu Taibai said seriously. That's what those monsters like to do. They want us to kill our own young ancestors. Of course, this is just a guess. Everyone had to admit that Wu Taibai's guess was probably true. It would not be easy for the monsters, the mortal enemies of humanity, to set up a trap in the ruler realm. If the trap could be destroyed so easily, then it would have been pointless. If they could set up a trap, then they had full confidence in trapping the four young ancestors. Even a progenitor might not be able to save them. The young ancestors were the hopes of this region, which was why they were called young ancestors. These monsters would not feel that it was a waste to deal with future progenitors. Furthermore, these traps might not have been set up on purpose, and they might not have been set up to deal with the young ancestors from the very beginning. Humanity had been at a disadvantage against these monsters for countless years, and even the ruler realm had been invaded many times. No one knew exactly how many traps had been left behind. Or perhaps these monsters were hoping that someone would come and save them. Perhaps the trap had not been fully activated? No one could say for sure. Should we leave? Mingguang asked. Everyone looked at Lu Yin. He was the one who had saved everyone, and he was the strongest, so his words carried the most weight. Lu Yin looked at Longxi in the meditative ruins. He could not let go of this woman. Even if he exposed his identity as a stowaway, Longxi still reminded him at the critical moment. This was beyond ordinary. From the moment Longxi reminded him, this woman had taken root in his heart. Lu Yin was unwilling to leave her here, but if he took her away, who could guarantee that she would not reveal that they were stowaways? It was one thing to have feelings, but could feelings be bigger than the situation? As the ruler of this starry sky, did Longxi really not care about the stowaways in the abandoned land? Even if they didn't care that Lu Yin was a stowaway, what about the others? It was impossible for her to allow these people to exist. Lu Yin wasn't confident that Longxi wouldn't expose him, and that would be playing with everyone's lives. Yao Xian was on guard. Lu Yin, you can't be thinking of saving that woman, right? We can't die with you. Invisible Light replied, our standpoints are different. Perhaps in the future you will have the chance to save her. Lu Yin frowned and looked at Longxi silently. Shangqing glanced at him. If you want to save him, then do it. Don't you have a great world? Just put her in the big world. Lu Yin was stunned and at a loss. A great world? Since when did I do that? Mount Supreme, he said indifferently. That's a great world? Lu Yin was shocked. The others were shocked as well. They were very familiar with Mount Supreme. Was that a great world? Shangqing explained, Mount Supreme is the Hall of Honor's most valuable treasure, and it's a world of its own. It can be big or small and it can be used for both offense and defense. Back then the Hall of Honor wanted to give it to me directly, but they didn't have a proper reason to do so. Thus, they made it the highest reward for the sovereign tournament, but it was taken by you. Lu Yin was confused. So you're saying that I stole something from you? Shangqing looked at him. Not really. You obtained it with your own abilities. However, there was a disagreement within the Hall of Honor, and Elder Chan made the decision to give you Mount Supreme. It's a great world that can store living things in your cosmic ring. With that he stopped talking. 3 streams of energy coiled around his body and he still looked like a deity. Anyone who saw him would want to beat him up. Lu Yin impatiently took out Mount Supreme and placed it on the ground, making it look like a fake mountain. Everyone looked at it and they could all find the location where they had fought. Lu Yin's statue was the biggest eyesore to them. Lu Yin sat down cross-legged. I'm going to control the corpse. Everyone please make way. Everyone looked at him strangely and made way. Lu Yin's consciousness appeared within the corpse's body and it stood up. Everyone was astonished. It actually worked? It wasn't that they hadn't come into contact with puppeteering techniques before, but they had never thought that it would come in handy at this moment. But even if it was a puppet technique, how was Lu Yin immune to the meditative ruins? They weren't stupid and they knew that Lu Yin had been holding back. But who hadn't? Ming Guang hadn't revealed his innate gift during the sovereign tournament, so they hadn't questioned him. The corpse came in front of Lu Yin and carried him back to the meditative ruins. Lu Yin couldn't be more than 5 meters away from the corpse. The corpse carried Long Shi out and placed him at the border before silently returning to the corner and merging its consciousness with Lu Yin's body once more. Lu Yin opened his eyes and pulled Long Shi out. Long Shi opened his eyes and looked around vigilantly. He saw the people in the meditative ruins and then fixed his gaze on Lu Yin with a complicated expression. You saved me? Lu Yin nodded. The others silently distanced themselves from him. Long Shi stared at Lu Yin and a spear appeared in his hand. He raised it high. We're enemies. Then why did you remind me? Lu Yin asked. Long Shi tightened her grip on the spear. Reminding you is the last of our friendship. From now on we have nothing to do with each other. Lu Yin sighed helplessly. Do you think they'll let you go? He then looked at Ming Guang and the others. Long Shi's gaze turned cold. Try blocking me. He then used White Dragon roaming steps and disappeared. Lu Yin's body also disappeared, blocking Long Shi's path. She instinctively used the White Dragon Heaven Inspecting Mirror. She was slightly stronger than Wang Yi, who had participated in the Sovereign Tournament. After all, she had broken through the lower threshold, but it was useless against Lu Yin. This was the first time the two had fought seriously, and Long Shi finally understood how terrifying Lu Yin was. The White Dragon Heaven Inspecting Mirror had trapped Lu Yin many times before, but it couldn't do so this time. Lu Yin used the Great Shift Array to appear behind Long Shi and grabbed her, golden battle force blossoming in his palm. Long Shi turned around, draconic patterns covering her body as she transformed into a white dragon. She smashed out with her spear without mercy. Lu Yin raised his hand and grabbed the spear's handle, causing a strong wind to spread from their feet to the surroundings. Long Shi couldn't even move. You. Lu Yin shook his head. Your strength is far weaker than mine. He then used overlaying stacks, causing 250 stacks to spread along the spear's handle. Long Shi couldn't even hold onto the spear properly, so she let go and punched out. Lu Yin tilted his head, and the spear's handle flew out from his palm, smashing into Long Shi's shoulder. Long Shi's body swayed and she couldn't punch out. Lu Yin's domain covered a radius of a few meters, making Long Shi feel like she was in a swamp. Lu Yin took this opportunity to press his hand on her shoulder and brought her into Mount Supreme. The scene in front of Long Shi changed, and she saw the majestic Mount Supreme and Lu Yin's statue above her head. She retreated a few dozen meters to face Lu Yin. Is this your true strength? Have you been laughing at me all this time? Lu Yin blinked. No, I'm quite afraid of you. Long Shi gritted her teeth. Where are we? A large world. Don't even think about running away now that you're here unless you can break out of it, Lu Yin said, throwing out star essence like crazy. Mount Supreme relied on star energy to create a protective barrier, and the more star energy there was, the stronger the barrier. In theory, it could reach 1,000,000 stars. Lu Yin didn't know how much star energy it would take to reach 1,000,000 stars, but just to be safe, he threw in 100 million star essence. Mount Supreme began to change, filling the interior with star energy while a transparent barrier appeared outside. Shi leaped up and punched the transparent light screen. Lu Yin watched. Shi punched the barrier, causing it to shatter. Shi rushed out of Mount Supreme and returned to the surface. Lu Yin's jaw dropped and he hurriedly rushed out while cursing inwardly. Mount Supreme had seemed powerful, but it was just for show. He had thought that it would have an envoy-level defense, but he hadn't expected it to be so weak. It needed money. Lu Yin left Mount Supreme and Shi glanced at him coldly. She raised a hand and her star energy transformed into a rope that she tossed towards Long Tian. She wanted to rescue Long Tian from the meditative ruins, but the moment the rope entered the ruins, Shi became confused and sat down cross-legged again. Lu Yin was speechless. If it was so easy to save them, he wouldn't have had to drag them out one by one. He grabbed Shi and returned to Mount Supreme. Once inside, Shi returned to normal and looked around. It was still the same place. Lu Yin didn't believe that he would be able to escape this time, so he threw in 200 million star essence. Upgrading the universal armor had cost a total of 116 million star essence, and it could withstand an attack with a power level of nearly 700,000. Mount Supreme was so massive that 100 million star essence was completely useless, so Lu Yin had tossed out 200 million star essence, which meant that he had spent a total of 300 million star essence. Shi leapt up once more and attacked the barrier. This time the barrier was much thicker and Shi's punch shattered it, but she didn't rush out. Lu Yin gritted his teeth, but it still wasn't enough. He threw in another 200 million star essence, which made his heart bleed. This was all for Shi, and if it weren't for her, he wouldn't have replenished Mount Supreme with so many star essence. Shi punched out once more, but she couldn't shatter the barrier this time. She was shocked and she began to frantically attack it. She used all sorts of battle techniques and even the white dragon transformation, but it was useless. The barrier shook violently, but it firmly blocked her attacks. Shi was unwilling to give up and she used a power vessel. When he saw her crazed expression, Lu Yin silently tossed in another 100 million star essence. He was already numb to this, as he had spent a total of 600 million star essence in order to thicken the barrier to the point where Shi would not be able to attack it. It was just too expensive. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Chapter 1444. Shi glared at Lu Yin. What are you doing? Lu Yin pursed his lips. I'm going to save you, but I'm afraid that you'll talk nonsense. You can only stay in this world for now. Don't worry, I'll let you out once it's safe. Shi was furious. Let me go. I'd rather go back to the meditative ruins. Are you stupid? That's a trap set up by those monsters. Going back doesn't bode well for you. Lu Yin was in a bad mood as he had suddenly lost 600 million star essence. His heart was bleeding and he looked up. Spending so much money to trap Shi didn't seem worth it at all. No, he had to produce some value. Right, you must be bored here by yourself, right? I'll find some companions for you, Lu Yin said to Shi before leaving. Shi stared at the empty Mount Supreme and was so angry that her face turned red. She thought back to the time she spent with Lu Yin. This guy must have been mocking her all this time. The most hateful thing was that this guy always said the most honest things. Too hateful. She would definitely tear his mouth apart. Soon a man was thrown in. It was Xianxia, and he crashed to the ground before standing up with a blank expression. Princess Shi? Where are we? Xianxia was confused. Shi panted heavily and replied, the outside world, Chi's place. Xianxia was stunned. We were captured by Chi? Shi was in a bad mood and ignored him. Yun Tingting was then thrown in, followed by Lu Hao and finally Crown Prince Gui Qian. Aside from the 4 young ancestors and Dong Shan, everyone else had been brought in by Lu Yin. He couldn't bring Long Tian and the others in, or else they wouldn't be able to withstand the 4 cardinal scales investigation. Only the 4 young ancestors were trapped in the meditative ruins, so the cardinal scales didn't care about them. At most they would investigate them, but that was a trap set up by the monsters and had nothing to do with them. As for Xianxia and the others, they were even more irrelevant. The sovereign realm was huge and only the heavens knew where they were. Everyone relax and wait here. I'll get you out, Lu Yin said. She was furious and gritted her teeth. When Shui and the others hurriedly said something, but Lu Yin ignored them. In the outside world, Lu Yin stored Mount Supreme into his cosmic ring with satisfaction. Now it was worth something. Yun Tingting's smoke was similar to that of the Gulping Smoke mountain range, but it was of an even higher grade. Lu Hao was from the Lu family, and Wen Shui had also grasped a higher-level literary prison. There was also Crown Prince Zhou Xian, who was from the Spectre clan. All of these people would be useful to Lu Yin if he brought them back to the Fifth Mainland, which would make the 600 million star essence that Lu Yin had spent worth it. Yao Xian and the rest could no longer sit still as they watched Lu Yin toss Wen Yi and the rest into Mount Supreme. Brother Lu, why did you bring them? Invisible Light asked. I'm an old friend. I can't bear to see them suffer here. Take them away if you can. Old friends my ass. Yao Xian cursed under his breath, his handsome face filled with dissatisfaction, but he did not dare to show it. Lu Yin was much stronger than him, and it was not impossible for Lu Yin to kill him. At the very least, Lu Yin could toss him into the meditative ruins and he would be finished. Now that these people have disappeared, the people in this region will definitely investigate. The Lu family and the White Dragon race won't let them off so easily, said Lu Tianmu. Lu Yin replied, the sovereign realm is so big. Who knows where these people are? Junior ancestor, are the four of them the only ones competing? How could there be such a coincidence? Yao Xian could not help but ask. Lu Yin looked at him like he was an idiot. Don't you still have us? Everyone was stunned. What did he mean? Everyone, do you know how to act? Lu Yin asked with a smile. A few days later, Nong Sanyang and Xia Taili arrived outside the joint of the tree branch. The two had been trapped for a few days, but Nong Sanyang's injuries had finally healed and they had joined forces to break free. Long Tian and the others could not keep them trapped for too long. This is the place? Nong Sanyang asked. Xia Taili nodded and looked around. There are traces of battle everywhere. I wonder how they're doing. Worried about Xia Shenfei, Xia Taili leapt down and headed towards the abyss. Nong Sanyang followed closely behind. The two quickly reached the bottom and saw that Lu Tianmu had been stabbed in the abdomen. The sword had been stabbed into the wall, and the blood had already dried and turned black. She was in a pitiful state. The person who had stabbed her was Wu Taibai, but he did not seem to be in a good state either. Half of his body was twisted strangely, and it was obvious that he had been heavily injured and had fainted on the ground. Xia Taili's face paled when he saw this and he hurried over to check. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Lu Tianmu was still alive. Nong Sanyang said, this woman isn't dead either. Xia Taili hurriedly shook Wu Taibai awake, who coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. He slowly opened his eyes and was delighted to see Xia Taili. I'm not dead. Xia Taili anxiously asked, what happened? Where's my brother? Wu Taibai shook his head. I'm not sure. I was about to heavily injure this woman, but my consciousness suddenly blurred and I seemed to have forgotten everything. When I opened my eyes again I saw you. Xia Taili did not understand and looked at Nong Sanyang. Nong Sanyang woke Lu Tianmu up as well. Lu Tianmu looked extremely miserable with multiple sword wounds on her body. She was lucky that she had not died. The moment she opened her eyes she subconsciously resisted, but Nong Sanyang easily held her down. What happened? I remember that you were with the White Dragon clan. Where's Long Tian? Lu Tianmu solemnly replied, I don't know. I was stabbed by a sword and fainted. When I opened my eyes I saw you too. Xia Taili and Nong Sanyang exchanged glances and then hurriedly walked inside. Wu Taibai glanced at Lu Tianmu and then struggled to get up. Both of them pretended to be vigilant as they followed Xia Taili and Nong Sanyang inside. Not long after they saw Lu Tianmu lying on the ground, his body covered in blood. Nong Sanyang hurriedly examined him and found that he was still alive. He had regained consciousness without any light, and he only remembered that there had been a chaotic battle. Xia Taili grew even more anxious and she walked further in. She saw Shangqing, Yao Xian and Lu Yin. All of them were in extremely miserable states, but they all had one thing in common. They were still alive. This was not right. How could no one have died after such a miserable battle? Then the meditative ruins appeared before her eyes. Xia Taili saw Xia Shenfei, Long Tian, Wang Su, Bai Xiaohong, Dongshan Warren and Donghe's corpse. She was about to enter when Nong Sanyang pulled her back. Nong Sanyang's expression was grave. Don't be rash. What happened? Xia Taili did not understand and looked at the others. Everyone was at a loss. Invisible Light said, in the chaotic battle, I think I heard the words meditative ruins. Meditative ruins? Meditative ruins. Xia Taili and Nong Sanyang spoke at the same time, their faces pale. Invisible Light replied, I'm not sure. Nong Sanyang's expression was solemn. That should be it. I remember now. The meditative ruins can indeed cause people to become like this. No wonder all of you collapsed in an instant. No matter how desperate the battle was, as long as you were enveloped by the meditative ruins, you would forget everything and become like the living dead. Lu Yin inwardly praised Nong Sanyang. If he hadn't known that she was from the Nong family, he would have thought that she was a stowaway. Where are Longxi and the others? Xia Taili asked Lu Yin. Lu Yin shook his head. They were separated a long time ago. We were attacked by a large number of withered creatures on our way here, so Longxi and the others were separated. Xia Taili frowned. Longxi and the others did not have a map, so they could not have found this place. But why wasn't Prince Guiqian here? How do we save them? Lu Yin asked, afraid that Xia Taili would overthink things and think of something wrong. After Lu Yin's interruption, Xia Taili forgot what he had been thinking and was only anxious to save Xia Shenfei and the others. However, they had only heard of the meditative ruins and did not know how to break through them. Xia Taili wanted to use his star energy to drag Xia Shenfei out, but he suffered the same fate as Longxi. Nong Sanyang solemnly said, the meditative ruins are not that easy to break through. We can't do it on our own, so we can only ask for help. Xia Taili was helpless. Let's return to the junior progenitor planet and ask for help from the clan's elders. Lu Yin's heart sank. For the first time he hoped that the monsters would be more powerful and not break through so easily. Otherwise they would all be in trouble. I'm curious. If the meditative ruins are a symbol of the Wang family's cultivation of the meditative realm, why would it be here? Did the Wang family set up this trap? Lu Yin asked curiously. He had thought of this question a long time ago, but he had been distracted. Nong Sanyang replied, this involves the Wang family's past. If you want to know, you should ask the elders of the White Dragon clan. Lu Yin choked and fell silent. The exploration of the sovereign realm usually did not end so quickly, but the situation was serious now. The fourth junior ancestor had been schemed against, so they had no choice but to return to the junior ancestor planet and ask for help. Before leaving, they had discussed leaving someone behind to guard this place. There are stowaways among us and no one knows what they'll do. If this trap was set up by those monsters, they might have a backup plan. We have to leave someone behind to guard it, Xia Taili said. Everyone looked at each other, wary and on guard. Xia Taili did not know what to do. She did not know if there were any stowaways among them, but if Mavis had managed to sneak in, then there had to be others as well. If any stowaways were left behind, then the consequences would be dire. Leaving Nong Sanyang behind was the best choice, but she was heavily injured and she had to face the elders herself. She had no choice but to look at Lu Yin. Lu Yin saw Xia Taili's gaze and his eyelids twitched. He coughed a few times and coughed up blood. Everyone else was in a similar state. Xia Taili was helpless. Leave the power vessel behind. My power vessel was broken by someone else, Lu Yin said, pointing at Shangqing. He did it. She rolled her eyes and helplessly replied, I wasn't talking about you. The more critical the situation was, the more one could not rely on such people. In the end, no one knew what Xia Taili had left behind, but from her relieved expression, Lu Yin guessed that it was a protection that surpassed the emissary level. However, her cosmic ring was still with him, so where had that power vessel come from? Lu Yin had overlooked an important fact. These elites were all adept at concealment. The more important something was, the less likely it was to be placed in a cosmic ring. After all, a cosmic ring was a conspicuous target, and it was safer to keep it close to one's body. When he thought of this, his heart skipped a beat and he looked at the people in the meditative ruins. They must have left something good behind. Unfortunately, it was too late. Thank you for your support, brothers. Thank you. Chapter 1445. They had encountered too many withered creatures on their way here, so they decided to work together to return to Junior Progenitor Planet as quickly as possible. The 4 junior progenitors being trapped was a disaster for this region of space, and it was unacceptable. Lu Yin pushed back a withered creature with great difficulty, But not only did it not die, it even grew stronger. Behind him, Xiaotaili was annoyed. How can you be so useless? Lu Yin retorted, I'm injured, seriously injured. Scram to the center, don't get in the way. Xiaotaili was especially irritable and shouted at Lu Yin. Lu Yin leisurely returned to the center and was protected by everyone with a clear conscience. Xiaotaili gritted her teeth. If not for the fact that she needed this bastard to prove her words, she wouldn't have brought him along. Suddenly Lu Yin cried out, Yu Hua. Xiaotaili was shocked and looked in the direction of the voice. In the distance, the withered creatures were also attacking another person, and that person was Yu Hua Mavis. Stow away. Xiaotaili shouted and raised her hand, using her divine martial force to push away the withered creatures and arrive in front of Yu Hua Mavis. Yu Hua frowned and punched out, a huge force colliding with the divine martial force and disintegrating it. She then fled in another direction. Xiaotaili quickly chased after her, followed by Wang Mingguang, Yao Xian, Lu Yin and Shangqing. Yu Hua Mavis hadn't expected 5 people to come just to deal with her. Xiaotaili didn't even think of bringing her along, and she looked at Lu Yin in surprise. What are you doing here? Lu Yin's expression turned serious and he whispered something to Xiaotaili. She was shocked and didn't seem to believe him. Seeing that Yu Hua Mavis was getting further and further away, Xiaotaili raised her hand and trapped her with a seal. Divine Martial Force's secret technique. Lock. Yu Hua Mavis couldn't break free for a moment. Xiaotaili and Wang Yi were almost on the same level, so it would be difficult for her to break free from this secret technique. Xiaotaili didn't hesitate to attack, using her divine martial force to smash Yu Hua's head. Suddenly, a sphere appeared in front of her. Divine Burst. Xiaotaili immediately retreated, the void trembling as a majestic spiritual force swept out in all directions, causing her to faint. She raised her head to look, but there was no light. It was just the right time to rescue Emergence Mavis. You really are stowaways. Xiaotaili shouted. Prime Clear made his move, and 3 streams of qi coiled around Yao Xian and Wang Xian. Concealed Light and the other 2 attacked at the same time, repelling the air currents. Lu Yin attacked as well, injuring Concealed Light with his emptiness palm. Yao Xian coldly said, There's no need to send me off. We'll never meet again. He then retrieved something from his cosmic ring and tossed it out. Lu Yin, Xiaotaili and Shangqing hurriedly retreated as the void was torn apart. A power vessel that surpassed an emissary's power erupted, creating a huge gale that swept them all away. At the same time, cracks appeared on the ground and branches. By the time peace was restored, Yu Hua Mavis and the other 2 had already disappeared. Xiaotaili frowned and looked into the distance. He had actually escaped. Was that power a treasure? Lu Yin coughed when he saw Xiaotaili. I didn't think that it would actually be a stowaway. Xiaotaili glared at him. Why didn't you say so earlier? Lu Yin was helpless. I'm not sure. I just happened to see invisible light in the Spirit Void Temple, but he didn't make a move against Yu Hua. That's why I had this guess. You're old friends with Concealed Light. That's one of the reasons, right? Lu Yin sighed. These stowaways are too powerful. Now that I think about it, they must have deliberately befriended me in order to hide their identities. Shangqing arrived. Let's go. Xiaotaili scanned the area once more before helplessly returning. Lu Yin and Shangqing exchanged glances as they watched Xiaotaili's retreating figure. This was a countermeasure that they had come up with long ago. Yu Hua Mavis had been exposed, and since there had already been one stowaway, it was unlikely that there would only be one. Once they returned to Junior Progenitor Planet, even if the 4 young ancestors were trapped and the 4 cardinal scales didn't pay much attention to them, their investigations would still not be peaceful. Of the group, Concealed Light and Yao Xian's origins could not be explained, so they simply hid with Yu Hua in Lu Yin's Supreme Mountain. Lu Yin was the son-in-law of the White Dragon clan, and his bloodline had been tested. Shangqing came from the nest, and according to him, no one knew who lived there. Some people were even born there, so there was no way to investigate. Wu Taibai was one of the twins of Shenwu Plain. As for Lu Tianmu, she really was someone from the Lu family. The 5th mainland's Lu family had originated from the Lu family in this part of the universe, and even the 13 swords had been passed down from there. She had long since passed the bloodline test. Lu Yin still remembered Lu Tianmu mocking him. Do you think the Lu family is stupid? How can anyone with the surname Lu join? Concealed light and Zhou Xian's exposure made it easier for the group to shake off their identities as stowaways, and they could also be safely taken away, killing two birds with one stone. After all, the stowaways knew each other, and if they had to leave, they would leave together. Who would have thought that the others were all stowaways? In previous expeditions to the Sovereign Realm, Lu Yin had heard from Long Shi that 8 or 9 out of 10 stowaways had died. Even if 1 or 2 managed to escape, they would still be extremely lucky. No one had expected that Lu Yin would be able to bring all of them away safely. Not even a progenitor would have expected this. Their greatest reliance was the remaining people, and the 4 cardinal scales had them. It was impossible for them to join forces, or else they wouldn't have been able to hide from those old fellows so easily. The return trip was much faster than when they had arrived, and several days had passed by the time they saw Junior Progenitor Planet. Xia Taili heaved a sigh of relief and shouted, "Senior Jun, we are not allowed to set foot in the Sovereign Realm. Please return to Junior Progenitor Planet," a voice said. Xia Taili panted heavily as he led everyone onto Shenwu's Junior Progenitor Planet. As the group stepped onto Shenwu's Junior Progenitor Planet, the void in front of them distorted, and an elder with a solemn expression walked out. "What happened, Taili? Where's the Junior Progenitor?" Xia Taili hurriedly told the elder everything that he had seen. The elder was shocked and immediately contacted Shenwu Plain. At the same time, 3 more people appeared in front of the group. There were 3 men and 1 woman, and all of them looked rather old. They were the 4 powerhouses who had survived 6 origin tribulations on Junior Progenitor Planet. According to the 5th mainland standards, their power levels were over 1 million, and they were on the same level as Master Yuan. Because they were old, they had no hope of advancing any further. They could only rely on the Junior Progenitor and hope that when he became a progenitor he would be able to take them 1 step further. Although they were old, their ambitions had not diminished. When they heard that the Junior Progenitor had been trapped in the meditative ruins, they all panicked. Lu Yin looked towards the Sovereign Realm. At this moment their fates were uncertain. He thought back to the location that Nguyen had mentioned. Only by going there would someone bring them back to the 5th mainland, but whether or not they could actually get there was another question. In the history of the 5th mainland, many people had snuck into this part of the universe to fight for the origin artifact and the chance to become a progenitor, but very few had succeeded. Those who could reach this part of the universe were the 5th mainland's top geniuses, and they were not any weaker than Feather Mavis and the others. To survive, luck was more important than strength. The rest would be up to fate. Half a day later, a terrifying fluctuation appeared. Lu Yin and the others looked up at the same time, sensing an unfathomable power enter the Sovereign Realm. This should be the power of a half-progenitor. Not long after, more terrifying auras entered the Sovereign Realm. Lu Yin's scalp went numb. No one knew what these old fellows were up to. He prayed again, hoping that these monsters would give him some strength. Although it was wrong to think that way, he did not want to die just yet. 1 day passed, 2 days passed, and then 5 days passed. On Shenwu Junior Progenitor Planet, everyone was still waiting. No one spoke, not even the 4 elders. Finally, after 10 days, the 4-way scales reacted. The first thing it did was to disperse everyone and ask them about everything that had happened in the Sovereign Realm. During the 2 days that Xia Taili and Nong Sanyang had been at the location indicated on the map, everyone had already discussed this. Without the 2 flaws of obscurity in Zhou Xian, the other people's identities and backgrounds were very clear. Other than Shangqing, there might be some setbacks, but it wouldn't be too severe. The 4-way scales only investigated whether there were any more stowaways among them. As for the 4 young ancestors being trapped, that had nothing to do with Lu Yin and the others. They did not have the ability to set up the meditative ruins, so it was obvious that it had been done by those monsters. As for Long Shi and the others' whereabouts, they did not know anything. If they could find out, then there was no point in trying to cover it up. If they couldn't, then there was no need to say anything. Did you all see it clearly? It's indeed the meditative ruins, and it's not an ordinary one either. There's definitely something hidden there. If we try to take them away by force, we might trigger something. Old Whitehead, if you want to talk nonsense, then talk to your disciples. Old Dragon, do you have any ideas? Nothing. If you don't, then stop talking nonsense. Your descendants are also trapped there. Think of something useful. Enough nonsense. A stern shout came from an old woman. The other 2 stopped talking. This meditative ruins is very old. It should have been left behind during an ancient battle. The desolate ancestor was probably still alive when this trap was set up. Yeah, if they can set up such a trap, then they're not afraid of us saving them. Let's wait until the ancestor comes out. It shouldn't take long. So cowardly. That's not like you, Xianxia. Old Whitehead laughed strangely. Old Dragon laughed as well. You're a hero. Shut up, you two. Let's put this aside for now. How are those kids? Old Dragon, I heard you lost another one of your descendants. How can there be no deaths in the exploration of the sovereign realm? You're not human, Old Whitehead said. Old Dragon was furious. Old Whitehead, do you want to fight? Enough, the old woman shouted again. Suddenly there was silence. Apart from the four-way scales, Xian Academy, Ghost Abyss, the Yun family and the Lu family all have people missing. If those monsters can set up a trap, then there might be a second one. Everyone think about how to explain this to them. There's no need to explain anything. We expected this to happen in the exploration of the sovereign realm. The 4 junior ancestors are trapped, so what can they say? Old Whitehead said. 3 ants from the abandoned land managed to sneak in. We still need to investigate the rest, the old woman said. That's not very likely. It's already pretty good that 3 ants managed to sneak in, Xianxia said. The meditative ruins belong to your Wang family. Don't you have any ideas? Old Whitehead asked. The old woman said, you know what happened to my Wang family in the past. They all stopped talking. I've been staying up all night for 4 days, so I'm still too tired. I need to rest a bit. I'm going on a business trip anyway, so I'll continue to update after a while. Chapter 1446. Finally, Xianxia spoke up. Us old things only know how to fight. It's better to leave this kind of brainstorming to the young. Is Xianxia still in seclusion? The old woman asked. The white-haired old devil replied, no. Her younger brother is trapped. She won't be indifferent if she comes out. Everything will be solved if she shows up. We don't need to waste our brains. The old woman said, breaking through progenitors is the most important thing, but progenitors have their own difficulties as well. They can't act as they please, so let's wait for the ancestors' instructions. We never thought that the 4 cardinal scales would be tricked by those monsters. Long Xian is wanted and killed without mercy. Don't you think so, old devil? The old man said, of course I have no objections. Then it's decided. On the White Dragon Minor progenitor planet, Lu Yin and Lu Tianmu stood beneath Long Tian's statue. With a rumble, the planet's bridges connected and headed towards the central realm. This trip to the ruler's realm was finally over. Lu Yin felt that it was a pity, as he was the only one who had obtained an origin artifact. Long she had said that while it was difficult to find an origin artifact in the ruler's realm, they would always find a few, not just one. It could only be said that this trip had ended so quickly thanks to those monsters. Those monsters had used the map that Long Xian had left behind to lure everyone into a trap. Even if the 4 progenitors had been rescued, their chances of exploring the ruler's realm had been cut off unless they were willing to break the rules. Breaking the rules was equivalent to going against the ancestors' wishes, and it would have far-reaching consequences. Whether or not it was worth it depended on the 4 cardinal scales. If it had been Lu Yin, even if the 4 cardinal scales forbade him from breaking the rules, he would still have secretly gone. Lu Yin and the others had expected that the group would be guarded on the minor progenitor planet. Even if there was nothing suspicious about them, the 4 cardinal scales would not believe them so easily. It would probably take some time to guard them. This was the end of everyone's plan. The rest of the journey was up to each of them to find a way to leave. Lu Yin had to race against time. He did not know how much the 4 cardinal scales could find out about them, but if Wang Yi came out, everything would be exposed. He had to leave before anyone else and reach the place that Invisible had mentioned. The White Dragon Minor progenitor planet wasn't big, but he didn't know where to go. In the end, he could only return to the black lava. Lu Yin let out a long sigh as he recalled his gains from his trip to the ruler's realm. If he wanted to, he could break through his middle finger right now. After all, he had 2 tribulation crystal pillars, one large and one small, so breaking through wouldn't be a problem. But now that his breakthrough had been discovered, it would be troublesome and it would be impossible to explain himself. In the end, he suppressed the throbbing in his heart and calmed himself down. Lu Yin did not know if anyone was monitoring him, but he released his domain and extended it outwards. Finally, he discovered a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man also sensed Lu Yin's domain and he calmly said, "Elder Long Kue told me to tell you that he'll be taking you to Dragon Mountain topmost." He then closed his eyes and stood there quietly. Lu Yin retracted his domain and frowned. Long Shi was gone and the White Dragon tribe's attitude towards him could not possibly be the same as it had been in the past. This was still a positive outlook as there might have been someone within the White Dragon tribe who wanted to get rid of him long ago. With his current status it was rather awkward. No, he couldn't go back to Dragon Mountain with Long Kue. Once he went he would never be able to come out again. Lu Yin looked up. Now that his die had appeared, there was no one in this region of space who could help him except for the humble ones. However, if he reached Dragon Mountain first, then the humble ones would not be able to help him. Before that, he had to think of a way to get the humble ones to assign him a mission. The junior progenitor planet could not contact the outside world, so his only hope was to roll 6 pips on his die. Lu Yin had tried it before and had used a small amount of star essence to roll 6 pips, which had coincidentally fused into Guan Yun's body. Guan Yun had been closer to him so he could give it a try and fuse it into someone close to him. With his strength, the person he fused with would definitely not be weak. The middle-aged man still had some integrity and did not monitor Lu Yin. This was his only chance. Lu Yin used his domain to drag back some star essence, but it was not much. He placed his cosmic ring to the side and raised his hand, causing the die to appear. He tapped it and it slowly spun before finally coming to a stop. Roll pips, borrow innate gift. Lu Yin had no choice but to try again. The second time he rolled 1 pip and a cube of star energy fell out. Lu Yin was speechless, but he used that cube to restore the die and tried again. The third time he rolled 2 pips but it was no use. He tried again and the fourth time it was still 5 pips. Lu Yin frowned, took a deep breath and prayed in his heart. The die slowly spun until it finally stopped at 3 pips. Lu Yin looked at the 2 screens and blinked. He then helplessly waved his hand to disperse them. Even though the middle-aged man was not monitoring him, Lu Yin did not dare to upgrade his external items too openly. What if he was discovered? Roll pips was still fine and he could just treat it as a form of cultivation. After rolling 5 times he had to rest for 10 days. This had been the case since the beginning and even after his spiritual force had improved so much, it was still the same. Lu Yin was at his wit's end. During these 10 days, Lu Yin used the dark magma to melt the star essence as usual and began to absorb it. During this time the middle-aged man had actually used his star energy to scan Lu Yin, but he had discovered that Lu Yin was still cultivating. Lu Yin felt a lingering fear as it seemed that the outside world was still not at ease with him and the others. After thinking about it, it made sense as they would not be so easily trusted. However, the suspicions were not strong as it was very common for people from the sovereign realm to die while exploring. At most Lu Yin's group had just been lucky. 10 days later Lu Yin raised his hand and tried again. This time his luck was better and he rolled 6 pips on his first try. The scene in front of him changed and Lu Yin's consciousness appeared in a dark space. He saw orbs of light and he directly merged into the closest one. As his vision brightened he opened his eyes and saw a pair of jade arms wrapped around him. Lu Yin was stunned. What the hell? Rest a bit more. Dead man won't be coming back for a while. He went to Wang Yu to curry favor with the junior ancestor. The owner of the jade arms was a beautiful woman who was curled up in Lu Yin's embrace like a kitten. The person Lu Yin had merged with was called Zhou Xian, and the woman in his embrace was someone else's wife. Memories flooded into Lu Yin's mind, and he stared blankly at the beautiful woman in his embrace with a strange expression. This was the Central Plain Realms branch of the Xia family. The head of the family, Xia Ru, was a powerhouse close to becoming an emissary, and he had long since gone to Wang Yu to curry favor with the junior ancestor, Xia Shenfei. The man Lu Yin had merged with was Xia Ru's sworn elder brother, and this woman was Xia Ru's wife. What was even stranger was that this Zhou Xian had been planted in the Xia family by the frigid Immortal sect. A spy had seduced the wife of the family head, and Xia Ru himself had been extremely respectful to this Zhou Xian. He had been hoping that Zhou Xian would break through to become an emissary so that he could observe the origin tribulation before breaking through. In any case, no one had good intentions. Lu Yin felt a headache coming on. In his embrace, Madame Xia opened her eyes and looked at Zhou Xian with a smile on her face. You look so, what, it's been so long, are you still afraid? This branch of the Xia family has long been under our control. If not for Xiaoru's identity, you would be the master of this place. She then leaned forward. Lu Yin watched as Madame Xia drew closer and closer and he panicked. He hurriedly withdrew from the fusion and appeared in the darkness. He then quickly returned to his own body, opened his eyes and exhaled. This had been too exciting. He had actually encountered such a situation. It was truly tempting. For some reason this Madame Xia reminded Lu Yin of Madame Nalan. Compared to Madame Nalan's natural charm which did not need to be intentionally released, this Madame Xia paled in comparison. He shook his head vigorously and did not think too much about it. He looked up and saw that the die had appeared once more. He continued to roll it as this Zhou Xian clearly could not help him. The die stopped rolling on the second roll and it hit 4 pips. The scene before Lu Yin's eyes changed and he appeared in the time-stop space. As long as he could enter this place he would definitely be able to obtain the points he wanted. However, he did not have too many star essences to upgrade himself with, and he did not want to use his own money to upgrade himself. He decided to wait and stabilize himself for a while before secretly storing the star essences in his cosmic ring. Slowly. However, he could still study that origin item. Lu Yin took out the leaf and looked it over, but there was nothing special about it. He used a bit of force but he could not pry it open. He used his star energy but there was no reaction. After some thought he dripped a drop of blood on it but there was still no reaction. This was strange. Since it could help someone break through the wisdom gate, how could there be no reaction at all? Did he have to break through the middle finger for there to be a reaction? Lu Yin studied it for several days but he still could not figure anything out. 3 days later when he left the time-stop space he still could not figure out anything. Could it be a fake? It was very likely that those monsters had set up a trap so they might have used a fake to trick them. Lu Yin gritted his teeth. He had actually been played. He cursed under his breath and continued to roll his die. On his 5th roll he rolled 6 pips and entered the dark space once more. He did not hesitate to merge with a very bright ball of light. He immediately opened his eyes, but before he could see anything clearly, the body he had merged with was swept up by an enormous tentacle. Lu Yin instinctively resisted and tried to escape using the secret art of strategy, but this body did not know how to use it. His body was dragged underground and he was shocked. What the hell? Lu Yin was not the only one who was dragged away by the tentacles. Terror ants were everywhere. Lu Yin's scalp went numb and his entire body trembled. He had actually fallen into a horde of terror ants, but they were also being swept up by the tentacles. A foul stench filled the air, and Lu Yin turned around to see an unforgettable scene. A round, black, abyss-like mouth had sucked him and the horde of terror ants into it. The mouth had come from an incomparably large anteater, and he could not see its full appearance. The next moment Lu Yin did not know anything. The person he had merged with was already dead. Lu Yin's consciousness returned to his body, and the black and white ball of light in his chest trembled and then grew slightly larger. Lu Yin did not pay attention to this as he was still thinking about the scene from before. That place was definitely the mortal realm and terror ants only appeared in the mortal realm. Terror ants were the natural enemies of countless creatures in the mortal realm. Both Long Shi and Lu Yin had treasures that were more powerful than envoys, but they could only run for their lives when they encountered terror ants. According to Long Shi, even the Ho could only run when it encountered terror ants. And the terror ants had become the anteater's food. What kind of monster was the anteater? Could it be a power level of 1,000,000 or a half-step ancestor? Chapter 1447. After another near-death experience, Lu Yin was filled with apprehension about the mortal realm. There were indeed countless terrifying monsters there, and it was no wonder that the roots had not been able to completely destroy them. After 5 rolls of the die, Lu Yin had another 10 days of free time where he continued to absorb star energy. It had already been 20 days since he'd returned to Junior Progenitor Planet, and during that time the middle-aged man had scanned Lu Yin with star energy 3 times. There had been nearly 9 days between the 3rd time and the first 2 times. As long as Lu Yin behaved himself, the middle-aged man would not monitor him. At his current rate of progress, it would take some time for him to become a hunter for the 19th time, but with the time-stop space, Lu Yin was not in a hurry. 10 days later Lu Yin continued rolling the die. This time he rolled 5 times but he did not roll enhance. He didn't even roll enhance, which was rather unlucky. Lu Yin walked out of the black lava to relieve his boredom, and he also dragged quite a few star essence back. He also secretly stored a considerable amount of star essence into his cosmic ring. It was time, as the situation had already stabilized for quite some time. Lu Yin wanted to take advantage of the situation, but he couldn't always take advantage of the same place. The resources here all have imprints, so you can't take them away. Lu Yin intentionally walked past the middle-aged man to see his reaction. Lu Yin pursed his lips. I know. The middle-aged man ignored him after he finished speaking. The cultivators who were willing to follow the junior progenitor were either nearing the end of their lifespans and could not advance any further, so they could only place their hopes on the junior progenitor. Either they were not strong enough or they had enemies outside, so they could only rely on the junior progenitor for protection. This middle-aged man was clearly the latter. Lu Yin tossed a large pile of star essence into the black lava and continued to absorb star energy while reciting the Stonewall scriptures. The Stonewall scriptures had always been mysterious, and he did not dare tell anyone about them. Whenever he encountered something strange, he would just recite the scriptures. Actually, Lu Yin had always wanted to investigate the Elder's identity on Drift Charge Planet, but unfortunately he had no idea where to start. Right, there was still that set of numbers. Lu Yin was afraid that he would forget, so he recited them again before finally feeling at ease. 10 days passed and no one came to Junior Progenitor Planet. Lu Tianmu was also cultivating in peace. Lu Yin raised his hand and his die appeared. He took a deep breath and prayed that he had to roll enhance. Only a 6 would give him a chance at survival. He tapped the die and it slowly spun until it finally stopped at 6. Lu Yin's jaw dropped. That's it? Had he rolled it the wrong way? Do I have to pray before shaking it? Before he could think too much, his consciousness appeared in the dark space. He quickly found a ball of light and fused with it. Before he could even open his eyes, the first thing he felt was a bone-piercing pain. He hurriedly opened his eyes to find himself in a dark cell. A short old man stood in front of him, cackling strangely. The sound of water dripping could be heard from the corner of the cell in a regular pattern. Lu Yin blinked. Was he being interrogated? Seems like it's still not enough. Let's continue then, the short old man laughed strangely. It was unknown what he did, but the bone-piercing pain came again. It was actually not much less painful than the pain of breaking through the next stage. It was as if his body was being crushed and reassembled. Lu Yin hurriedly said, I'll talk. The short old man was clearly startled and his eyes flashed. What did you say? The pain disappeared and Lu Yin and the short old man exchanged glances. What did he say? How would he know? At that moment, memories flooded into Lu Yin's mind, causing his brain to swell. 2 seconds later he understood the situation. The owner of this body was called Ren Qing, and he was an emissary who had survived 2 origin tribulations. The reason why Lu Yin had been able to fuse with this body was because the astral energy vortex in this person's body had been scattered, and he had been weakened to the extreme. Any enlighter with a power level of 400,000 could deal with him, which was why Lu Yin had been able to fuse with him. However, this was not important. The most important thing was that this person was actually a redback, the only redback that Guan Hai had contacted. When Lu Yin had revealed that the 3 Guan brothers were redbacks, Guan Tong and Guan Hai had been taken away by Qing Chen. Before they could be interrogated, the 2 had committed suicide and become redbacks. If they were discovered, they would not be able to survive. The 2 had been quite decisive, and perhaps this was why they had been assigned to the humble Huayuan sect. If they were caught, they would die immediately. Their decisiveness had previously been greatly appreciated by Qing Chen, but now, it had angered him the most. Fortunately, through the people that the 3 Guan brothers had contacted, Qing Chen had investigated them one by one. He had not found anything at first, but Qing Chen had been astute, and he had pretended that he had found something and pretended to be arrested. Everyone else had been fine and they had not resisted much. Only Ren Qing had truly believed that he had been discovered, and when he had resisted he had been targeted. In the end, Qing Chen had personally captured him. The moment he had captured this person, Qing Chen had immediately broken the man's astral energy vortex, fearing that he would commit suicide. However, Qing Chen had overestimated this person. This person did not have the courage of Guan Tong or Guan Hai, and he had confessed everything immediately. However, because he had confessed too early, Qing Chen had not believed him, and neither had the short old man in charge of interrogating him. Thus the interrogation had not stopped. In any case, this Ren Qing was rather miserable and Lu Yin sympathized with him. He knew that this person had confessed the truth. I knew that you would want to hide more important information. Speak. If you don't want to suffer, then tell me. Otherwise, I won't let you die so easily. I'll spend the rest of my life slowly tormenting you. With your body's condition, it won't be a problem for you to live for more than 100 years, the short old man said in a strange voice. Coupled with the gloomy atmosphere around him, it was truly terrifying. Regardless of whether it was a cultivator's body or will, they were far superior to ordinary people. However, the interrogation methods used to deal with cultivators were also far superior to ordinary people. A cultivator who had been interrogated by a unique method would end up no different from an ordinary person. Lu Yin had read many of Ren Qing's memories, and he was certain that Ren Qing had nothing more to hide. He had confessed everything and he had only heard the voice of the person who had turned him into a redback. He had not even seen the person's face, but he had confessed everything. What, you still want to hide it? The short old man's gaze turned cold and his tone was rather terrifying. Lu Yin sighed. I'll tell you. The short old man's eyes narrowed as he stared at Lu Yin. The body that Lu Yin had fused with was too weak, and he was constantly gasping for breath. He even coughed up blood as he stammered. When I first discovered that the Guan brothers were redbacks, I made contact with them and met them in their secret place. I saw. Lu Yin paused intentionally. The short old man barked. What did you see? Lu Yin replied weakly. I saw that they recorded some things. They should have been related to the person who had turned them into redbacks. They had the characteristics of the person, but I didn't see it clearly. The short old man stepped forward and asked anxiously, where are the records? We searched that place but we didn't find anything. Lu Yin smiled bitterly. We set up a mechanism for the things we recorded. How could they have been so easily searched? The first person who touched those things could have seen them, but the place where the records were recorded might have been destroyed because they had been seen. The short old man grabbed Lu Yin by the chin. What else are you hiding? Spit it all out. Lu Yin howled. I'm not hiding anything. It's not anything important at all. I just remembered it. That's the most important thing. You dash. That was all Lu Yin heard before his consciousness returned to the dark space and fused back into his body. He opened his eyes and was secretly delighted. His luck was pretty good as he had actually managed to fuse into Ren Qing's body. The line had already been cast and whether or not he could catch a fish would depend on luck. He didn't dare say anything else and continued to roll his die. 4 pips. Time stop space. Lu Yin was secretly delighted as it was time to upgrade his external items. He estimated that he had stashed away more than 1 billion star essence, which was close to 2 billion star essence. He didn't know how many more items he could upgrade. First was his formcast model. When he had broken through to the hunter realm, he had used up the formcast model. Afterward, he had upgraded another formcast model to 6 times, but when he had wanted to upgrade it a 7th time, he had realized that he didn't have enough money. Upgrading a formcast model from 6 times to 7 times would have required more than 100 million star essence. It hadn't been enough, but now it was enough. He began to roll his die. As long as he was in the time stop space, he would definitely be able to roll enhance. After a period of time, Lu Yin rolled his die for the 6th time and he finally rolled enhance. He looked at the 2 screens and felt rather excited. Formcast models were actually a specialty of the 5th mainland, and they were used to upgrade the abilities of cultivators who were slightly richer. In the 6th mainland and the cosmic tree domain, the cultivators of the same generation did not use formcast models and instead used enlightenment. Lu Yin had never heard of a 7-stage formcast model before, and he didn't know what its specific effects were. Regardless, he would know once he tried it, and there was no harm in trying it out. It was time to become a tycoon. Lu Yin's eyes flashed with excitement as he frantically threw out the star essence he had obtained from Junior Ancestor Planet. He watched as the formcast model slowly dropped until it was completely gone. Lu Yin looked at the formcast model in front of him that didn't seem any different, but it had already been upgraded. He could only sigh at how expensive it was. This formcast model didn't seem much different from the previous one. As he thought about it, he looked at the 2 screens. Could it be upgraded again? Lu Yin was very curious. He placed the formcast model on the upper screen and then threw in 1 million star essence. He stared at the formcast model. Did it move? No, it didn't seem to have moved at all. Lu Yin was a little disappointed as there was probably no way to upgrade it. However, he also rejoiced. If there really was a way to upgrade it, would he have the money to do so? The sixth upgrade of the Formcast model had cost him more than 8,000 star essence, and the seventh upgrade would cost him more than 100 million star essence. According to his calculations, even if he could upgrade it, wouldn't he need 1 trillion star essence or even more? Where would he get that much money? Even if he emptied the entire junior ancestor planet of the White Dragons, he might not have enough. However, emptying all 4 planets should be enough. As he looked forward to upgrading the Formcast model again, Lu Yin looked at the items in his cosmic ring, wondering which one he should upgrade. First was the origin artifact, and he didn't know what it would be like if he upgraded it. He didn't hesitate to toss the leaf onto the upper screen, but it didn't move. Lu Yin was disappointed that he couldn't upgrade it. Next was the aquatic plant power vessel. Chapter 1448. He looked at the water plant power vessel in his hand, which he had obtained from Xia Tyli. It had left a deep impression on Lu Yin since he had shamelessly relied on it to protect him in the past. This was it. Lu Yin tossed the water plant power vessel onto the upper screen and then began to upgrade star essence. He had upgraded the dagger he had obtained from Wang Su Xiaxian phase puppet, the tribulation fire, the extreme ice stone, and so on. He had upgraded everything that he could. Of course, he had only upgraded things like the extreme ice stone a few times. He knew when to stop and take things slowly. All sorts of external items had used up all the star essence he had obtained from Junior Progenitor Planet, and he was now armed to the teeth. Of course, the price he had paid was not small either, as he had spent nearly 2 billion star essence. If news of this spread, it would shock countless people. Even if the 4 cardinal scales did not lack money, they would not have spent so much. Lu Yin secretly guessed that ever since Junior Progenitor Planet's resources had appeared, he had used more than the 4 junior progenitors combined. No, he had used more than everyone else on Junior Progenitor Planet combined. Although he felt a little dizzy, he still continued to roll his die. Half a day later, in a certain region of the Central Realm, there was a mountain near the main trunk of the Mother Tree. It was located slightly south of the center of the Central Realm, and it was tall and connected to the heavens. This mountain was called Clear Dust Mountain, and it was where Superintendent Qian of the 9 Gates resided. It was also where he cultivated. The short old man reported the results of the interrogation to Qian, who had a solemn expression. "Have Kai Shu come see me?" Soon after, a scholarly middle-aged man appeared before Qian and bowed. "Master." This was Kai Shu, Qian's eldest disciple. He was also the person in charge of handling the affairs of Clear Dust Mountain and the 9 Gates. Qian tossed the interrogation report to him. Kai Shu looked at it and was surprised. "There's still information left. I thought that he had told me everything." Qian replied, "This information has nothing to do with him. He probably couldn't stand the interrogation and tried his best to recall it." "What are your plans?" Kai Shu said solemnly, "The records of the Guan brothers are very important. For a long time, those monsters have used various identities to hide among us humans. To be able to develop the Guan brothers into redbacks, that person must have an extremely high status, whether among us humans or monsters." Qian nodded, then frowned. "There's something very strange." Ren Qing clearly confessed this information, but then he went back on his word and refused to admit that the information came from him. Kai Shu was puzzled. "Why is that? I've already explained everything that needs to be explained. Why won't you admit to this information?" "I don't know. This is also a mystery, so this person cannot die. We must continue to interrogate him. So, what do you think about this record?" Qian asked. Kai Shu said, "Long Qi was the one who exposed the 3 Guan brothers as redbacks. He was also the one who provided the evidence, so we can ask him to assist in the investigation." Qian shook his head. Ren Qing said that the record was in the Guan brothers' secret place. "I checked it before, but it wasn't there. Long Qi couldn't have come into contact with it." "Master, since Ren Qing said that there is such a record and the secret place of the Guan brothers in the Huayan Humble School doesn't have such a record, could it have been destroyed long ago?" "After all, Ren Qing saw it," Kai Shu guessed. Qian nodded helplessly. "That's possible. It seems like this information is worthless." "There's another possibility," Kai Shu suddenly said, her eyes flashing. The evidence that Long Qi used to accuse the Guan brothers of being redbacks came from Guan Yun's secret hiding place. Since Guan Yun secretly hid evidence, could he have hidden that record as well? Qing Chen's eyes went wide. Contact the White Dragon clan immediately. I, Qing Chen, as the superintendent of the 9 humble schools, order Long Qi to come to Clear Dust Mountain to assist in the investigation. Understood. On the White Dragon Junior progenitor planet, Lu Yin put down his hand. Ever since he had upgraded an external item from his cosmic ring, he had failed to roll 6 pips the next 2 times. He had already prayed, but it had been useless. He was not disappointed as he had already achieved his goal. It would be best if he could roll 6 pips again, as he would be able to check his memories regarding the Lu family. If he couldn't, then it was fine. When he thought about the Lu family, his heart sank. The 4-way scales had exiled the Lu clan to its current position. In that case, his enemies would be the 4 strongest clans in this starry sky. Each of the 4 clans had a progenitor. How terrifying were they? Any one of them could easily wipe out the 5th mainland. Bai Xiaohong's dying words still echoed in Lu Yin's mind, and there was one sentence that he cared about the most. So what if we gather the entire wasteland and attack this region? You won't be able to resist the frigid Immortal sect. Bai Xiaohong's backing was a progenitor, and he was one of the top powerhouses in the frigid Immortal sect that was second only to progenitors. However, the 5th mainland was not that simple. In their eyes, the wasteland contained the inheritances of progenitor Qin, progenitor Hui, and the symbol progenitor, as well as the hidden inheritances of the previous 4 mainlands. Lu Yin did not believe that the entire 5th mainland could not resist the frigid Immortal sect. He wanted to try. He was already the master of the Outerverse, so he might as well become the master of the 5th mainland. As he thought about this, Lu Yin tapped his die, causing it to slowly spin before finally stopping at 6. Lu Yin was shocked, as this number was too unexpected. He had actually gotten a 6 twice out of the 5 times he had tried. Lu Yin's consciousness appeared in a dark space. Because he had just fused with Ren Qing's body, he did not have many star essence left. He directly fused with the ball of light closest to him. It was not too bright, but it was not too dim either. When he opened his eyes, he saw a snow-white neck and a girl whose back was facing him. He also saw what she was doing. Lu Yin was stunned. Wasn't this girl Yu Qin? A large amount of memories flooded into his mind, causing his face to twitch. Yu Qin turned around, puzzled. What's wrong? Nothing. Lu Yin slowly bowed and replied respectfully. Yu Qin did not think much of it and turned back to continue with her work. However, she did not notice that the old man behind her was filled with confusion, excitement, worry, and various other emotions. When Yu Qin turned around again, the old man had returned to normal. Lu Yin's consciousness had returned to his body, and there were too few star essence left. Yu Qin was on Frigid Immortal's junior ancestor planet, which was not too far from the White Dragon's junior ancestor planet. Lu Yin opened his eyes and they were filled with intense worry. That old man was Yu Chen's protector and had protected her since she was young. He was the person she trusted the most, and through the old man, Lu Yin knew some of Yu Chen's jade butterflies and how to contact her. This information should have been enough to make him happy, but then he saw a person in the old man's memories. Lu Xiaoga. He would never have thought that Lu Xiaoga would also come to this region of space, much less appear beside Yu Chen. This was inconceivable. Where had Lu Xiaoga gotten the ability to come here and join the Frigid Immortal sect? Had he also come through Jupiter? That was the only explanation. Since he had come through Jupiter, then the question was whether he had come here by accident or on purpose. If he had come here by accident, then it would be fine, but if he had come here on purpose, then things were different. This meant that Lu Xiaoga knew about this region of space, or at the very least he knew about the Primeval Surname Alliance and the Hidden Earth Society. If Lu Xiaoga knew, then what about Bai Qian? What about the other members of the Hidden Earth Society? Lu Yin frowned as Lu Xiaoga's appearance had completely disrupted his train of thought. He had almost forgotten about this person, but he had been reminded by the Daoist clan members back on Earth. At that time he had discovered that Lu Xiaoga was actually able to cause an enlighter from the Daoist clan to hunt him down. It was clear that Lu Yin was improving, and so was Lu Xiaoga. Now Lu Xiaoga had actually joined the Frigid Immortal sect. Lu Yin was certain that Lu Xiaoga had seen his information, but he had not told Yu Chen about it. What was his goal? For a moment, Lu Yin could not see through Lu Xiaoga. Lu Yin's impression of Lu Xiaoge was that he was a despicable person who would do anything to achieve his goals. Lu Xiaoge was actually very similar to Lu Yin, but this person had no bottom line. Lu Xiaoge had not exposed Lu Yin yet, but that did not mean that he would not do so in the future. Perhaps Lu Xiaoge was waiting for an opportunity, one that would allow him to soar to the heavens. Of course, the most important thing was that Lu Xiaoge would not be able to protect himself if he exposed Lu Yin. This region of space was very resistant to stowaways, and even Bai Xiaohong had vouched for Lu Yin, but Lu Yin did not believe him. Once Lu Xiaoge exposed his identity as a stowaway, then it would be useless no matter what contributions he made. Otherwise, the stowaways who had been here before would have settled down here long ago as long as they betrayed their own people. This path would not work, and the biggest reason why Lu Xiaoge had not exposed Lu Yin was because of this. Unless Lu Xiaoge was certain that he could shut Lu Yin up the moment he exposed Lu Yin. Lu Yin temporarily set aside his worries about Lu Xiaoge. This person had done everything possible to join the frigid Immortal sect and had even walked to Yu Chen's side. It was impossible for him to want to perish together with Lu Yin. Lu Xiaoge had thought that he was watching Lu Yin from the shadows, but he had never expected that Lu Yin would know of his existence. In that case, let's see who can outplay the other. Suddenly, Lu Yin wanted to know how the fifth mainland was doing and how the outerverse was doing. Even though Moonless had told him a few things, Lu Yin still did not feel at ease. His die had 6 pips. If he had enough star essence, would he be able to send himself to the fifth mainland and merge with the people there? Lu Yin was tempted by this thought and he leapt out of the black lava. He deliberately avoided the middle-aged man and brought back batch after batch of star essence. Even though he still had some external items that he could not upgrade, he knew that he could not go overboard. He could not hide any more star essence in his cosmic ring, as it was obvious that he was missing quite a bit. If he continued to hide star essence, then he would attract the attention of important people. He decided to just leave it at that for now. Lu Yin's actions could not be hidden from the middle-aged man. The man frowned, but he did not say anything. It was just as he had said. All the resources on Junior Progenitor Planet were imprinted, and Lu Yin could not take them away. Even though that was what the middle-aged man thought, he still watched Lu Yin frantically toss star essence into the black lava. Even though these resources did not belong to the middle-aged man, he still felt his heart ache. He could not help but say, "You can't take these resources away and your cosmic ring isn't that big." Lu Yin smiled at him politely before continuing. The middle-aged man frowned and snorted, but he did not say anything else. Even though he had joined Junior Progenitor Long Tian, he was still not a member of the White Dragon clan. Even if Lu Yin's status within the White Dragon clan had plummeted due to Long Shi's disappearance, he was still a member of a branch of the White Dragon clan. The middle-aged man could not do anything to Lu Yin, so he just pretended that he had not seen anything. In any case, once the Junior Progenitor came out, this person would definitely be reprimanded. Chapter 1449. Lu Tianmu walked out of her private room. She had been cultivating for more than a month, and her injuries were much better than before. Out of everyone who had come to the sovereign's realm, her injuries were the most severe. She wondered how Lu Yin was doing and if he had any way of leaving. Before coming to this starry sky, Old Zen had told him not to force himself if he really couldn't obtain the origin item. It was more important to stay alive and return. As long as he reached that place, he would be safe. But now, how could he leave Junior Progenitor Planet? As he thought about this, a large shadow loomed over his head. Lu Tianmu looked up and was stunned when she saw Lu Yin pass by while carrying a mountain of star essence. He even smiled at her when he saw her. Lu Tianmu blinked his eyes. He was at a loss. What happened? The middle-aged man also saw it. He was annoyed and did not look. Lu Yin tossed the star essence into the black magma with a bang. Of course, he separated the magma from the rest, as he would have to continue searching for the star essence if it melted. Looking at the small mountain of star essence, Lu Yin estimated that there were at least a few 100 million star essence here. He didn't know if it was enough. He couldn't take any more from that place. If he took any more, it would be obvious that there were a few places that were missing. The outside world would be suspicious. Let's settle down for a few days and break through first. He took out a heaven flame stone and began to absorb the black lava. A few days later, the die was restored and Lu Yin started rolling it again. For Pip's pretty good luck. He appeared in the time-stop space and then took out a heaven fire stone. It was time for him to break through and become a hunter after his 19th cycle. On the White Dragon's junior progenitor planet, the middle-aged man opened his eyes and looked in Lu Yin's direction. What was this guy planning to do with so many star essence? As he thought about it, he couldn't help but feel curious. His star energy swept past Lu Yin's position, and at that moment, Lu Yin seemed to have noticed him and looked back at him. The middle-aged man was astonished. He had actually broken through. He had become a hunter on his 19th cycle and he was now a peak hunter. He was only one step away from breaking through to the Enlightened realm. What a pity. If Lu Yin had broken through before the exploration of the Sovereign Realm, then the junior ancestor would have treated him better. However, even if Lu Yin had become an Enlightened at that time, he would not have been of much help to the junior ancestor. As for the star essence, they were still there and nothing had changed. He frowned as he had no idea what Lu Yin was trying to do. Lu Yin sensed that the middle-aged man's star energy had been withdrawn, and his lips curled up. This person had indeed been unable to resist the urge to investigate, but he hadn't discovered anything yet. It seemed that he wouldn't be doing so for the next few days. He raised his hand and sensed his strength as a hunter after his 19th cycle. There was not much of an increase, and this cycle's increase was just an increase in his total amount of star energy. While it might have been a significant increase to a normal hunter, it did not make much of a difference to Lu Yin. Only when he broke through to the Enlightened realm would there be a difference. It was impossible to break through to the Enlightened realm here. He looked at the star essence inside. He raised his hand and his die appeared. He hoped that he could roll 6 pips. It was a beautiful dream, but unfortunately he didn't roll a 6 in the remaining 4 rolls of the dice. He had to wait for another 10 days. At this moment, in the middle-level world, Long Kuei received orders from his clan to bring Long Qi back to the upper world Dragon Mountain. Long Kuei was frustrated as well. Ever since Long Qi appeared, he had become the man's bodyguard. He was an elder of the White Dragon tribe, and the more he thought about it, the more unhappy he became. Helpless, he could only go to the White Dragon Junior Ancestor planet. If he had known, he would not have left. 10 days later, Long Kuei saw Wang Yu in the distance, which was very close to the White Dragon Young Ancestor planet. Lu Yin looked up as well and his die appeared. He tapped it again. The die spun slowly and finally stopped at 6. Lu Yin was delighted as he had rolled it. His consciousness appeared in the dark space. This time Lu Yin was not in a hurry and he quickly traveled through the dark space. The further he traveled, the more likely it was that he would reach the 5th mainland. 15 minutes later, he chose a ball of light to merge with, as he was afraid that he would run out of star essence. My name is San Liang and I'm a very ambitious person. I've set my goal since I was young, and that is to become a person above others. Others cultivate and I cultivate as well. Others focus on cultivation, but I'm different. I want to cultivate, but I also want to study psychology. Psychology is a very interesting field of study, especially for cultivators who are all brawn and no brains. I can easily read their body language, and because of that, even if my cultivation is the same as others, I can easily obtain a much higher status. For example, right now with my power level that barely exceeds 400,000, I frequently come into contact with the various directors and help them deal with some mundane matters. My goal is to become one of the directors. Originally, this was an unattainable dream as the position of director was not prepared for someone like me with no background. However, something big happened at Glory Mountain, which caused the director position to become vacant. My chance has come. However, it won't be easy to snatch the director position from so many competitors. I don't lack anything, but I lack a powerful background. What should I do? Lu Yin opened his eyes and the memories flooded into his mind. These words were deeply imprinted in his mind, reminding him to never forget them. This really was the 5th mainland. Lu Yin was ecstatic and he ignored the messy memories and immediately searched for information regarding the Outerverse. After a while, Lu Yin relaxed. Fortunately, after he had disappeared, Elder Chan, the head inquisitor and Everlasting Island had clearly stated that no one was allowed to touch the Outerverse without permission. Furthermore, he had not been missing for long, so nothing major had happened in the Outerverse. However, 2 major events had occurred in the Neoverse. The first was that the 6th mainland's secret ancestor had forced his way into the Neoverse and used his progenitor's power to find the Eternal Kingdom. He had destroyed the Eternal Kingdom in one fell swoop, shocking the universe. However, he had been inexplicably injured and no one knew exactly how he had been injured. Many speculated that he had been injured by the power left behind by the Fifth Mainland's progenitor, just like the martial ancestor. Some also speculated that the Neo-Human Alliance had a power that could injure a progenitor. Regardless of which theory it was not something that 2 or 3 people could come into contact with. Back when Bukong had been killed by the 7 sky gods of the Neo-Human Alliance, the secret ancestor had moved to eradicate many of the Sixth Mainland's Neo-Human Alliance strongholds before giving up. Everyone had thought that the matter was over, but who would have thought that the secret ancestor had been suppressing himself until now? He had then moved to find the eternal kingdom that the Fifth Mainland had been unable to find for countless years and directly destroyed it. A progenitor possessed boundless power, but he had held back and endured the ridicule of many. The secret ancestor's schemes were not something that mortals could compare to. Even Lu Yin felt that the secret ancestor had been too rash. If the horizontal black hole had been destroyed without him, then the Fifth and Sixth Mainlands would have been finished. The second incident was a disaster for the Fifth Mainland. One of the Fifth Mainland's half-progenitor, Spirit Fat Mavis, had died. She had not been killed, but rather died while trying to break through to the progenitor realm. This incident caused a huge commotion in the Fifth Mainland, and it even affected the Sixth Mainland. This was the first time since the ancient war that someone had failed to break through to the progenitor realm. The Fifth Mainland's half-progenitor had died. How could it be so easy to break through to the progenitor realm? Spirit Fat Mavis had dared to be the first to attempt to break through, which meant that she had a considerable amount of confidence. This San Liang was very interesting, and the more Lu Yin read through his memories, the more he felt that this person was a genius. This person also had a deep impression of himself, especially Invincible Sage. No one had ever dared to be impudent on Mount Glory, and Invincible Sage had toppled San Liang's worldview. He wanted to become a director, and in order to become a director he had not forgotten to study psychology while cultivating. He was truly a prodigy. No matter how hard he worked, it was a pity that no one supported him. Lu Yin's eyes flashed, and he raised a hand to leave Wang Wen's contact information before withdrawing from the fusion. San Liang's body trembled and he looked around. Strange, why did he seem to be in a daze just now? He was about to leave when his expression suddenly changed as he saw the contact information left in front of him. His face turned deathly pale. Someone had approached him without him noticing at all. San Liang suddenly looked at his gadget. 1 minute had passed and he had not felt it at all. A feeling of dread spread from the bottom of his heart. This was Mount Glory and someone had actually dared to attack him so easily. That person's strength was beyond his imagination, and if they wanted to attack him, wouldn't that be an easy task? San Liang looked at the contact information in front of him and hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth. Regardless of whether it was a blessing or a curse, he had to face it. He immediately raised his gadget to try to contact the person, but he found that he could not reach them. The other party was too far away. Helpless, San Liang headed to Starlink World as that was the only place where he could contact the entire universe. On White Dragon Jr. progenitor planet, Lu Yin's consciousness returned to his body, and he moved his shoulders. He looked around and his expression changed. He had actually used up all of his star essence. Even if he had not voluntarily withdrawn from the fusion would have ended due to the lack of star essence. This was too exaggerated. How long had it been? It had only been a minute or so, and he had only read 2 or 3 portions of the person's memories and left a way to contact him. That much star essence had been used up in such a short amount of time. If he wanted to stay for a while longer, he would have to use up hundreds of millions of star essence. All of the star essence on this planet would not be enough for him. At that moment, star energy swept over him. Long 7, Elder Long Kue wants to see you. It was the middle-aged man's voice. Where are the star essence? Lu Yin pursed his lips and leaped away from the dark red lava. He glanced at the astonished middle-aged man in the distance and then headed towards Long Tian's statue. Soon after, Lu Yin and Long Kue rode on the back of a flying chariot and headed towards the central calm sea. As for the middle-aged man, he reported to Senior Yi he on Junior Progenitor Planet. Senior Yi he was the only person on Junior Progenitor Planet who had survived 6 origin tribulations. By the standards of the Fifth Mainland, his power level was over 1 million. The star essence is all gone? Senior Yi he was astonished. The middle-aged man's expression turned ugly. Yes, it's all gone. Senior, he laughed. It seems like this kid has a way to erase the imprint. Forget it, there's no need to worry about him. To powerhouses above the emissary level, star essence was just a low-level cultivation resource and they did not care about it at all. However, to the middle-aged man, star essence was an enormous amount of wealth. If he had had that much star essence in the past, he would have broken through to become an emissary long ago. He was rather unhappy, not because he was unwilling to part with the star essence, but because he was jealous. However, when he thought about how Lu Yin was a member of the White Dragon clan, it was likely that he did not lack star essence. He could only sigh and continue cultivating, hoping that the junior ancestor would return soon. Chapter 1450. Where's Lu Yin? Lu Yin really wanted to take away all of the star essence on junior progenitor planet, but he knew that it was impossible, at least for now. He couldn't allow any accidents to happen just because of a few star essence. However, that didn't matter. As long as Long Tian and the others were trapped in the sovereign's realm, junior progenitor planet would not disappear. There would always be a way, so Lu Yin decided to set it aside for now. Qi flew past the ancestral gazing tower, past the gazing isle, and arrived above the central calm sea in the blink of an eye. How did you get separated from the princess? Long Kui asked. Someone had already asked him this question. At the mention of Long Shi, Lu Yin pretended to be sad and even a little nervous. There were too many withered creatures and they didn't die even after being attacked. Instead, they became more and more powerful. We were attacked and we were all scattered. Long Kui frowned as the clan had long known this answer. During the 2 months that Lu Yin had been back, the clan had not only tried to think of a way to save junior ancestor Long Tian, but they had also tried their best to search for Long Shi's whereabouts. However, the ruler's realm was not an ordinary place. Although half-ancestors could enter, they had to be more careful than anyone else. In the end, they had failed to find anything. When Lu Yin saw that Long Kui was about to ask more questions, he hurriedly said, "Elder, how will the clan treat me?" His expression was very perturbed, filled with hesitation and confusion about the future. Looking at Lu Yin, Long Kui lost interest in asking more questions. Among all of them, Long Qi was the one who did not want anything to happen to Long Shi. Something happened to Long Shi, this person would have a hard time in the White Dragon tribe. Not only the White Dragon tribe, but also the people he had offended before would find trouble with him more easily. The White Dragon clan had never doubted Lu Yin. No matter how they analyzed it, Lu Yin did not want anything to happen to Long Shi. He valued Long Shi more than Long Tian. The White Dragon clan was sure of this. Don't worry. News that hasn't been confirmed to be the princess is still good news. Perhaps it won't be long before the princess returns, Long Kui said. His attitude towards Lu Yin was much better than before. Perhaps it was out of pity, but Long Kui knew that the tribe's attitude towards Long Seven was definitely not good. This person would definitely not have a good time at Dragon Mountain. Lu Yin sighed and looked into the distance. Nothing must happen. Not long after, the void in front of them cracked open, as if a fault had appeared in the sky. He stopped abruptly and stared ahead warily. Long Kui's expression was grave. An emissary was blocking their way. A man and a woman walked out of the spatial fault and calmly looked at Long Kui. When Long Kui saw who it was, his expression turned even uglier. So it's Mr. Lu Yi and Big Sister Fei Hua. May I know why you two are blocking my path? Lu Yin looked curiously at the man and woman in front of him. The man was Mr. Lu Yi, whom he had met at the ancestral gazing tower. The woman, on the other hand, looked ordinary, but her figure was very hot. Although she wasn't considered beautiful, she gave people a very comfortable feeling. It was just that her cheekbones were slightly high and her lips were thin, making her look a little mean. These two were a team flying willow leaves and flowers. They were extremely famous in the middle-level world and even Long Kui feared them. As for why they had come, there was no need to guess. It was definitely because of half-ancestor Kui Luo. Up ahead, Mr. Lu Yi took a step forward and smiled. This junior has been waiting here for senior, and I sincerely hope that senior can understand. I have a question for little brother Long Seven. Long Kui frowned. Mr. Lu Yi, I respect you as a humble guest who helped capture Redback, which is a great contribution to the human race. I won't pursue the matter of you blocking my path, but I'm not afraid of you. I've already said that Long Seven only obtained a portion of half-ancestor Kui Luo's resources, and it doesn't even count as an inheritance. You also believed me at the ancestral gazing tower, But now you're joining forces with Big Sister Fei Hua to block my path. Difficult. Your words at the ancestral gazing tower don't count? Mr. Lu Yi did not speak and Fei Hua walked out from behind him. Senior Long Kue, I'm the one asking this question. I didn't say that I believed that brat's nonsense. Long Kue frowned as this woman's words were annoying. Mr. Lu Yi growled, Fei Hua, watch your words. Fei Hua snorted and stared at Lu Yin. Brat, if you're a man then don't cower. Although half-ancestor Kue Luo is loathed by others, he never hid his actions and dared to take responsibility for them. Since you've obtained his inheritance then don't embarrass him. Lu Yin was speechless. Had half-ancestor Kue Luo dared to take responsibility for his actions? He had done it on purpose. Otherwise, how could Lu Yin satisfy his crazy hobby? Senior, this junior really only obtained a bit of resources. It's just like how you lost your wallet while walking and this junior just happened to pick it up. Could it be that I've picked up senior's inheritance? Fei Hua stared at him. I don't believe you. Lu Yin opened his mouth but he had nothing to say. Long Kue barked. Sister Fei Hua, Long Seven said that he doesn't know and that means that he doesn't know. Anyone who asks, including the Nine Gates Superintendent or the Master of the Four-Side Scales, still doesn't know. Move aside immediately or my White Dragon tribe will view this as a provocation. Fei Hua gritted her teeth and stared at Lu Yin. That matter has always been a sore point for Master. Even after his death I still have to ask him about it. Brat, where did you obtain his inheritance? Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat as he was afraid that others would investigate. The more they investigated, the more loopholes they would find. Senior, this junior really doesn't know. There's no point in you forcing me to answer and there's no point in interrogating me either. Long Kue was enraged when he heard this. You still want to interrogate me? Tian Ho roared at the sky and Long Kue's spear appeared and he pointed it at Lu Yefei. Are you trying to provoke my White Dragon tribe? Mr. Lu Yi hurriedly stepped forward and blocked Fei Hua's path. He apologized to Long Kue saying, Senior, this junior was rude. It's just that my heart is too heavy and Master died because of this as well. That's why I lost my composure. Please forgive me. He then looked at Lu Yin with a deep gaze. Little brother, it seems like you really don't know. We've offended you. He then raised a hand causing a willow leaf to bloom and threw it at Lu Yin. Long Kue was surprised but he did not stop him. Lu Yin caught it curiously. This is a power vessel, the flying willow leaf flower. It's something that belonged to the two of us and it's a gift to you as an apology. We've offended you today. He then stepped aside and pulled Fei Hua away. Fei Hua was still unwilling, but she did not block Lu Yin's path again. Thank you, Long Kue said in a low voice before Tian Ho sprinted away. As she watched Tian Ho's figure disappear, Fei Hua gritted her teeth and asked, Why did you let them go? Once that brat returns to Dragon Mountain, it'll be very difficult for him to come out. We won't be able to ask him even if we wanted to. Mr. Lu Yi replied, That's why I gave him the flying willow leaf flower. If he doesn't come out then we'll pretend that he doesn't exist. Once he does I'll immediately know where he is. You saw the situation just now and even if he knows he won't say anything. If he does, then countless people in this region will cause trouble for him. Long Kue won't let him say anything either, even if it means starting a war with us. Let's fight then. Are we afraid of Long Kue? At worst we'll just join the humble school, Fei Hua said. Mr. Lu Yi shook his head. There's no need to fall out with the White Dragon clan. Let's wait. As long as that brat leaves Dragon Mountain we'll have a chance. In the distance on Tian Ho's back, Lu Yin curiously looked at the flying willow leaf flower. It was a rare treasure and it was not an ordinary one either. He could sense the hidden power within it. That's a flying willow leaf flower power vessel that was jointly created by Lu Yi and Fei Hua. In this region of space, it's a rather good defensive power vessel and they rarely give it away. You've gotten lucky, Long Kue said. Lu Yin was curious. What do they want to ask? Long Kue's eyes flashed and he looked at Lu Yin. Do you want to know? Lu Yin blinked. No. Then don't ask. Don't ask anyone else. Long Kue's tone was unpleasant. Lu Yin answered, Are we going to the top realm now? Long Kue did not answer. This guy's attitude had changed again. Old man, I'll deal with you sooner or later. Lu Yin looked at the central plain realm. Why hadn't the fish taken the bait yet? If they really went to Dragon Mountain, then it would be very difficult for them to leave. Was the bait not enough? Seeing that they were about to leave the central plain, Lu Yin grew increasingly anxious. On this day Long Kuei's cloud vision stone trembled, and Lu Yin did not know who he was talking to. Lu Yin could vaguely hear Long Kuei mention Clear Dust Mountain, and he was secretly delighted. Long Kuei put down the cloud vision stone and pondered for a moment. He then patted Ho's back and suddenly changed directions, heading in a different direction in the central plain realm. Lu Yin was curious. Why did you change directions? This time Long Kuei spoke. Go to Clear Dust Mountain. Lu Yin was puzzled. Long Kuei said, Clear Dust Mountain is where the superintendent of the 9 humble schools, Senior Clear Dust, resides. Senior Clear Dust wants you to assist in investigating some matters regarding the Guan brothers. Lu Yin was confused. Weren't Guan Tong and Guan Hai taken away by Senior Clear Dust? What else does he want me to do? Long Kuei shook his head. This is a matter of the humble school, so I'm not sure. Think carefully about what you know and help Senior Clear Dust deal with it as soon as possible. I'll wait for you outside Clear Dust Mountain. Oh, Lu Yin answered, and his lips curled up. Wait. Don't wait, as he would never be able to do so in this lifetime. There was no way he would go to Dragon Mountain. Even if he wanted to go to the top realm to investigate the Lu family, he would not do so with his current identity. If he did, he would only be put under house arrest. 12 days later, Lu Yin saw Clear Dust Mountain in the distance. Clear Dust Mountain was where Clear Dust resided. Not only were there many experts from the humble school, but there were also many of Clear Dust's disciples. Lu Yin was led into Clear Dust Mountain by one of the disciples. As for Long Kuei, he really did wait outside without entering. When it came to matters involving the humble school, there were some things that Long Kuei wanted to avoid as much as possible. At the peak of Clear Dust Mountain, Lu Yin saw the superintendent of the 9 humble schools, Xianxia. He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. The 14th gate's long 7 greets the superintendent. Xianxia nodded in satisfaction. He had single-handedly arranged for Lu Yin to enter the 14th gate. He did not care about the struggle for the 4 cardinal scales, nor did he care about the motives of the unknown source of information behind Lu Yin. He only cared about one thing, which was that Lu Yin had been able to find a spy for the humble school and Redback. That was enough. Long 7, it's good that you've returned safely. I heard that the trip to the sovereign realm was very dangerous, and there were even stowaways involved, Xianxia said gently. Lu Yin respectfully replied, yes, those stowaways from the abandoned lands are too cunning. Even Junior Ancestor did not discover them. Xianxia sighed. There have been stowaways in the past. Forget it, let's not think about them. Do you know why I sent you here? Lu Yin shook his head. Chapter 1451. Xianxia glanced at Kai Shu, and it was only then that Lu Yin noticed the scholarly middle-aged man standing behind Xianxia. Kai Shu smiled. I'm Kai Shu, the superintendent's eldest disciple. Lu Yin bowed again. Junior Long Qi greets Senior Kai Shu. Kai Shu nodded and said, I invited you here this time because the interrogator mentioned the Guan brothers. There's also, Lu Yin naturally knew the reason, he was the one behind this. After Kai Shu finished speaking, Lu Yin frowned and tried to recall. Xianxia was not in a hurry and simply waited. This matter was of great importance, and they could not give up on any clues related to the Redbacks. Besides, this involved the mastermind behind the Guan brothers, and that person's status was definitely extremely high. If they could find out who it was, it would be a great fortune for humanity. Lu Yin tried to recall, and his expression kept changing. After half an hour, he said, I remember that when I first obtained the evidence, I did see a stone tablet with something recorded on it. However, I only caught a glimpse of it before it turned to dust, so I can't remember it clearly. Kai Shu looked at Lu Yin seriously. Long Qi, you must remember. This matter is very important and you cannot be careless. Xianxia said to Lu Yin, as long as you can provide us with valuable information, you'll be rewarded greatly. Lu Yin was resolute. I will do my best. Xianxia and Kai Shu were satisfied with Lu Yin's attitude. 2 days passed, but Lu Yin still could not recall anything. He looked at Kai Shu helplessly. Senior, it's not that I don't want to try my best to remember, but I'm really uneasy and can't concentrate. Kai Shu's eyes flashed. Why are you uneasy? Lu Yin replied bitterly. Princess Long, she went missing and the clan's attitude towards me changed drastically. If I return to Dragon Mountain, I won't have a good ending. That's why I've been worried about this matter, and it's hard for me to concentrate. Kai Shu understood that this kid was asking for a condition. He smiled. How about this? I'll report this to Master and see if he has a way to calm you down. Lu Yin was apologetic. I'll have to trouble you, Senior. Kai Shu did not get angry, as everyone would think for themselves. If Lu Yin was truly so selfless, then Kai Shu would find it strange. It would be normal for someone like him to come up with some conditions. Those who did not raise any conditions were either truly selfless, or they were scheming for something bigger. There were selfless people, but Kai Shu preferred to believe in the latter. Working in a humble family, one could only trust in the latter, which was why he felt more at ease when Lu Yin raised the conditions. You don't want to return to Dragon Mountain? Qin Chen frowned. This is difficult. Although this person is from the 14th gate, he is still a member of the White Dragon clan. From the standpoint of the White Dragon clan, if he wants his clan to return to their ancestral land, he can find any excuse to do so. Even the humble class cannot interfere. Unless Long Qi has a mission, the White Dragon clan can't forcefully take him away before the mission is completed. That way the humble class can negotiate with the White Dragon clan, Kai Shu said. Qin Chen sighed. Looks like I'll have to contact Owl. He smiled bitterly. Back then Long Tian contacted me several times because of this brat. Now I have to contact someone else because of this brat. I even have to negotiate with the White Dragon tribe. That's the most troublesome thing. In the top realm, atop a giant dragon mountain, the White Dragon clan's patriarch Long Ku did not have a good expression. During this trip to the sovereign realm, Long Tian had been trapped and Long Shi had gone missing. The loss of the patriarch was a heavy blow to him. The main bloodline had weakened and many of the clan members had already begun to dig up old scores. If there was no successor to the main bloodline, then the main bloodline might change. This was something that Long Ku would not allow. However, things had not reached the worst point yet. Long Tian had only been trapped, and there was still hope of saving him as long as the ancestor acted. Moreover, the 4 cardinal scales junior ancestor was also trapped. If they worked together, there was nothing that could not be done. Because of this, Long Ku was able to have some peace. Otherwise, if Long Tian had gone missing like Long Shi, his position as patriarch would not be stable. At that moment, someone reported, Elder Quan wishes to see you. Long Ku's expression turned even uglier. Long Quan was the patriarch of the largest branch of the White Dragon clan, and also his biggest competitor. Long Ku had always been thinking of ways to suppress Long Quan's branch. Now that the main bloodline was in trouble, Long Ku had been asking to see him for 3 days straight. He knew what Long Ku was thinking, and if he could, he would have dealt with him long ago. Unfortunately, Long Quan's branch was not weak either. Long Quan greets the patriarch. Behind Long Ku, an old man with a sinister expression slowly bowed and greeted Long Ku. Long Ku was a middle-aged man and he looked very similar to Long Tian. At first glance he looked like a middle-aged Long Tian. He was solemn and aggressive, the complete opposite of Kai Shu. Elder Quan, what's the matter? Asked Long Ku indifferently. Long Quan looked up. I'm here to ask you about the investigation on the junior ancestor planet. Long Ku stared at him coldly. Do I have to report everything to you, Elder Quan? Long Quan wasn't angry. He had been suppressed for many years and was used to Long Ku's attitude. Patriarch, you're exaggerating. It's just that many of our clansmen want to know, so they asked me to ask them. On the eve of the sovereign world, Dragon Quarry, Nong Lai and Wen first were poisoned. Because of that, the junior ancestor had no choice but to bring Long Qi to the sovereign world. If the junior ancestor had brought Nong Lai or Dragon Quarry, things might not have turned out this way. Besides, Princess Long Shi might have gone missing while protecting Long Qi. We have to give our clansmen an explanation. Long Ku narrowed his eyes. We're still investigating who poisoned them. As for Long Qi, it's just a guess. A few days ago, Kai Shu from Clear Dust Mountain contacted you. She wants Long Qi to go to Clear Dust Mountain to help with the investigation. When will he return? Many of our clansmen want to see him, said Long Quan. Long Ku stared at Long Quan. These subsidiary bloodlines wanted to use Long Qi to humiliate the main bloodline. They couldn't wait. Long Qi is already at Clear Dust Mountain. He'll come to Dragon Mountain in a few days, said Long Ku. Long Quan smiled. It's good. I'm just asking. Many of our clansmen are curious. Please don't be angry. At that moment Long Ku's cloud stone trembled. He glanced at Long Quan and Long Quan tactfully retreated. When he turned around he smiled. The main bloodline? What a joke. He had climbed up from the subsidiary bloodlines just like them. If they could climb up, why couldn't his bloodline? Long Qi was the starting point of the main bloodline's decline. They had already thought of a series of methods to suppress Long Qi. Long Qi wasn't important. What was important was his identity. Long Tian was trapped and Long Qi had gone missing. Even the heavens were helping him. When he thought of this, Long Quan almost laughed. Elder Quan, please wait a moment, said Long Ku suddenly. Long Quan was startled and turned around. Do you have any other instructions? Long Ku looked at Long Quan and suddenly smiled. Long Qi won't be back for a while. Long Quan's expression changed. What do you mean? Even if the princess is missing as the son-in-law of the main bloodline, Long Qi should return to Dragon Mountain and be protected by the clan. Long Ku said, it's not that I don't want him to come back, but he was given a mission by the 14th clan to assist Clear Dust Mountain in investigating the 3 Guan brothers as redbacks. Long Quan's eyes widened. Didn't we already investigate the 3 Guan brothers as redbacks? All 3 of them are dead. What's there to investigate? Long Ku was helpless. You can ask Senior Clear Dust. Anyway, Long Qi is also from the 14th clan. Since he has a mission, he will naturally prioritize it. This is related to the overall situation of the human race. Elder Quan, you won't disagree, right? Long Quan's expression was extremely ugly. Disagree? Of course he wouldn't agree. Several subsidiary bloodlines had thought of countless ways to use Long Qi as an excuse to suppress the main bloodline. If he said he wouldn't come back, then he wouldn't. He immediately wanted to contact Clear Dust Mountain, but he suddenly looked up at Long Ku and gave up in the end. The humble school was not part of the White Dragon tribe and he had no right to speak. His reputation was not as important as the mission. It doesn't matter. The mission can't go on indefinitely and he'll have to come back eventually. Family head, please protect Long Qi well. He's the son-in-law of the main bloodline after all. Don't let anything happen to him during the mission, Long Quan said sinisterly. He was not threatening him, but rather sincerely hoping that nothing would happen to Lu Yin. Long Ku smiled. Elder, there's no need to worry. Please return. Long Quan did not even bid farewell this time. He simply turned and left, his expression terrifyingly gloomy. This had to be Long Ku's idea. This guy had actually mobilized the humble school's resources to forcefully keep Long Qi at Clear Dust Mountain. If Long Tian did not return, then this guy would definitely keep Long Qi at Clear Dust Mountain. This would not do. He had to think of a way to get Long Qi out of Clear Dust Mountain. Long Ku's eyes flickered as he watched Long Quan leave. He had thought of keeping Long Qi on Junior Progenitor Planet, but he had never thought of keeping Long Qi at Clear Dust Mountain. He had not expected this person to be so important that Senior Clear Dust had taken the initiative to keep him. It was better for Long Qi to stay at Clear Dust Mountain until Long Tian returned. When he thought of Long Tian and Long Shi, Long Ku's mood sank once more. In the central realm on Clear Dust Mountain, Lu Yin looked at the mission from the Cloud Connect Stone and was secretly delighted. Stay at Clear Dust Mountain and assist in the investigation of Owl. These few words determined Lu Yin's current fate and he could stay. Outside Clear Dust Mountain, Long Kue left with a blank expression. What was going on? Wasn't he only supposed to stay for a few days? Why had the deadline been extended indefinitely? Tian Ho was more depressed. He still liked Lu Yin, but he could not see him again. Kai Shu appeared in front of Lu Yin with a smile. Long Qi, the White Dragon tribe has agreed to let you stay at Clear Dust Mountain to assist in the investigation. You do not need to leave before the investigation is complete. I want to know. She then looked at Lu Yin. How long do you want to stay? Lu Yin thought about it and then said, until the junior progenitor returns from the sovereign realm. All right, Kai Shu answered. Then try to think of as many clues as possible. I hope that it will be done as soon as possible. Kai Shu promised that even if Lu Yin revealed everything he knew, he could still stay until Long Tian returned from the sovereign realm. There was no need for him to intentionally hide information and stall for time. Thank you for your support, brothers. Chapter 1452. Lu Yin knew that he could not delay this any longer. Staying at Clear Dust Mountain was the first step, so what should he do next? There were progenitor realm experts in this part of the starry sky. No one knew when Long Tian and the others would be rescued. He wanted to find out what happened to the Lu clan before Long Tian and the others were rescued. Then he would head to the location Invisible Light told him and return to the Fifth Mainland. Neither of these things were easy, and the prerequisite was that he could leave Clear Dust Mountain openly. Over the next few days, Lu Yin exposed Guan Yun's spies one after another. He had only captured a few of the spies and there were more than half that he had yet to capture. Now he was exposing them bit by bit, and although Kai Shu was not satisfied, it was still somewhat effective. 10 days later, Qing Chen appeared in front of Lu Yin with an indifferent expression. Long 7, you might have been able to recall those spies, but you know what information I want. Tell me, what exactly did you see back then? Lu Yin was put in a difficult position. Senior, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but the information I saw was too vague. It would be useless even if I told you. Behind Qing Chen, Kai Shu said, it doesn't matter. Tell me. Lu Yin said, actually, after thinking about it for so many days, I've gradually recalled some things. Guan Yun's records did not mention the person who developed the Guan brothers, and there wasn't even a code name. When he heard this, Qing Chen's expression turned ugly. He had specifically contacted Owl for Lu Yin's sake and even communicated with the White Dragon clan. Although the communication had gone smoothly, he was a half-ancestor, and doing all this for a junior had resulted in useless information. He had even promised to let Lu Yin stay at Clear Dust Mountain, which made him unhappy. He admired Lu Yin, but that did not mean that he did not mind being used by Lu Yin. Right now he felt like he had been used. But that person has a special characteristic. Lu Yin looked at Qing Chen carefully, then at Kai Shu. He swallowed his saliva and decided to just say it. No one would be able to verify it anyway. He coughed and said solemnly, it's not a person, it's a doll. Lu Yin's face twitched when he heard this, as he had based his description on the sorcerer spirit god's appearance. The sorcerer spirit god was one of the Fifth Mainland's 7 sky gods, and that fellow was also a member of the monsters. Although no one could verify his claim based on his appearance, no one could refute it either. There was indeed such a person among the monsters. Lu Yin had thought that Qing Chen might not believe him, or that she might be skeptical. At worst she would think that he was lying, but the result shocked him. Qing Chen's face had completely changed. What did you say? A doll? What kind of doll? Qing Chen asked eagerly, staring into Lu Yin's eyes. Lu Yin was stunned. What did this reaction mean? Tell me, what kind of doll? Where did you see him? Qing Chen shouted. Lu Yin blinked and met Qing Chen's eyes. I can't really describe it. Guan Yun's records only mention 4 words. Confusion of the 5 senses. Qing Chen's expression changed again, and he withdrew his gaze from Lu Yin and looked into the distance. Kai Shu's face was solemn and she asked Lu Yin, what else? Lu Yin had prepared some excuses to highlight his role in this matter. It would be best if he could go out and investigate, but Qing Chen's reaction made him pause in time. He shook his head. There's nothing else. Kai Shu looked at Qing Chen solemnly. Master, it's the sorcerer spirit god. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat, but he did not dare to show it. The sorcerer spirit god. There was actually a sorcerer spirit god in this part of the universe. Was it a coincidence? Or was it the same person? He had just told a simple lie, a very simple one. How did the sorcerer spirit god get involved? And they all knew about it? Qing Chen and Kai Shu left. Lu Yin could not listen to their conversation, but he really wanted to hear it. On the other side, Qing Chen reminisced. The 7 sky gods are humanity's greatest enemies. They have always been a thorn in our side. They have been our eternal enemies since our humble school was first established, but we have not been able to kill them. The 7 sky gods are hidden among us and no one knows which one is the 7 sky gods. Only a few people know their names, and Long 7 definitely does not know about the sorcerer spirit god. If he can say that the 5 senses are in chaos, then he must have seen Guan Yun's records, Kai Shu said. Qing Chen nodded. With the 7 sky gods status, it makes sense to develop the Guan brothers. Huayuan's geographical location is special, and Guan Tong is one of the leaders of the 9 gates. Only people at the level of the 7 sky gods can develop them. I'm just worried about whether or not there are any redbacks in the 13 gates. Kai Shu said, it's difficult to find out whether or not there are any redbacks. If not for Long 7, we would not have thought that the Guan brothers were redbacks. Master, who do you think is the source of the unknown information behind Long 7? To think that they were able to find out about the Guan brothers. Qianxia said, I secretly investigated but there was no result. Could it be? Kai Shu hesitated but then shook her head. That's not very likely. Sacrificing the Guan brothers to develop Long 7 is meaningless. However, the reason Long Xian left behind that guide map which led to the fourth young ancestor being trapped, is because of Long 7. If sacrificing the Guan brothers can lead to the fourth young ancestor being trapped, then Long 7 might not be a redback. Qianxia looked at Kai Shu. You suspect Long 7? Kai Shu said, even Master can't find the source of the information behind Long 7. It's normal to suspect him. Qianxia laughed. He can't be a redback. Kai Shu was puzzled. Why? Qianxia's gaze was stern. Because the Huayuan is too important. It's connected to the cloud ladder, and the cloud ladder hides a lot of unspeakable darkness in the four directions scale. The sorcerer spirit god developed the Guan brothers because of their status, which would allow him to smoothly develop spies and obtain information about the humans. Secondly, it's because of that darkness. Kai Shu did not understand. Darkness? Qianxia did not explain further. The Guan brothers are more important than you know. Even if we want to deal with the fourth young ancestor, the Guan brothers cannot be sacrificed. I'm very certain of this. Kai Shu did not speak. Although she knew many things with her status and even knew about the 7 sky gods, her master had never told her much about the four directions scale. She had only been warned to stay as far away from it as possible. What does master plan to do? Kai Shu asked. Qianxia looked in the direction of the Huayuan. Long 7 came into contact with Guan Yun's scarlet token. Kai Shu trembled. You're planning to? One day later, Lu Yin was staring off into the distance, deep in thought. Kai Shu arrived with a smile on her face. When he saw the smiling Kai Shu, he did not know why, but he felt a chill run down his spine. He had a nagging feeling that something bad was about to happen. Long 7, how have you been at Clear Dust Mountain? Kai Shu asked with a smile. She was very friendly. Lu Yin's mind raced. What did she mean? How should he answer that? This guy's smile was very treacherous. Long 7. Kai Shu was puzzled. Lu Yin coughed. Well, not bad. Kai Shu smiled. That's good. That's right, I remember that you don't want to go back to Dragon Mountain. Lu Yin's eyes flashed and he suddenly wanted to go back to Dragon Mountain. The current Kai Shu made him feel very uneasy, but in the end he still replied, I don't want to go back for now. Didn't you promise me that you would only let me go to Dragon Mountain when the junior ancestor returns? Kai Shu nodded. Yes, but even if junior ancestor returns, you don't necessarily have to go to Dragon Mountain. Princess Longxi has gone missing, and your days are definitely not going to be easy. That's why Master has found another way for you. Consider it your reward for your contribution. You should know that the information you recalled has contributed greatly. Not only did you complete the 14th mission, but you also provided us with a valuable clue. Lu Yin blinked, and the first thing he thought of was the sword steal's reward. It was both a reward and a mission, so he quickly rejected the offer. Thank you, senior, but I don't want any rewards. The humble school has helped me enough, and I just want to do my part for the greater good of humanity. Kai Shu smiled. You can't not want a reward. If you don't reward your contributions, many people will be disappointed. No, I'm the one who doesn't want a reward. I definitely won't be disappointed, Lu Yin quickly said. Kai Shu patted Lu Yin's shoulder and sighed. If everyone had the same resolve as you, Long 7, then there wouldn't be any spies or redbacks. It's a pity that Master once said that a redback cannot become an ancestor. Long 7, you have the same ambition as Master. Lu Yin pursed his lips and wanted to vomit. Who wouldn't want to become an ancestor if they could? Only by becoming an ancestor would they be able to better deal with those monsters. He hadn't expected Qianxia to be so good with words. It was no wonder why she had been able to become the superintendent of the 9 gates. Alright, there's no need to decline. Master's reward for you is to become the acting sect master of the Humble Huayuan School. You'll be in charge of the Humble Huayuan School's affairs. Long 7, you've become the acting sect master of the Humble Huayuan School from being an unknown disciple of the 14th gate. There has never been anyone below the strength of an emissary who has become an acting sect master. You're the first and you'll definitely go down in history, Kai Shu congratulated. Lu Yin's mind was about to explode. Acting sect master? One of the 9 gates? This increase in strength was too great. He had spent quite a bit of time in the humble school, and he knew that one of the requirements to become a sect master was to have the strength of an emissary. Lu Yin was just a hunter and the difference was too great, but he had actually become an acting sect master. Although he was an acting sect master, his authority was the same as a sect master's, and he could be removed at any time. Kai Shu was still congratulating him, but Lu Yin didn't listen. Humble Huayan School acting sect master. These few words stunned him and he was certain that he had been tricked. But what exactly was Xianxia trying to trick him? He couldn't figure out Xianxia's goal, but he knew that everyone in the humble school of Huayan was unhappy with him. It was because of him that the humble school of Huayan was looked down upon by the other 8 gates. Even their own sect master was a redback. What a joke. Once he went to the humble school of Huayan, his scalp would go numb just thinking about it. Senior Kai Shu, I'm still young. How can I become the acting sect master of the humble school of Huayan? Even a captain isn't qualified, let alone a sect master. Lu Yin immediately refused. Chapter 1453. Kai Shu laughed when she heard Lu Yin's words. Young man, you should gain more experience. How many months have you been in the humble class? You've made many contributions, and the list of spies you've revealed over the past few days has shocked the entire Central Plain Realm's 9 gates. You don't even know how famous you are, and you were the one who exposed the Guan brothers. Oh, and you also have the ability to see through people. That's why you're the acting sect master. What's the purpose of the humble class? It's not a battle. It's about capturing redbacks and capturing spies. Whoever can capture redbacks more accurately and efficiently will become the sect leader. Look, Zhou hasn't even caught a redback yet. Isn't he still the sect leader? He relied on his battle prowess, while you relied on your ability to see through people. Lu Yin cursed inwardly. What the hell? He was just bragging, and even an idiot would know that. How disgusting. Senior, I might as well be frank. Because I exposed the Guan brothers as redbacks, the entire humble class of Huayan is dissatisfied with me. I'm afraid that no one will listen to me even if I go. After all, I'm still young and only a hunter, Lu Yin said bitterly. Kai Shu waved a hand. Don't worry. Since Master has appointed you as the acting sect master, he naturally won't let you go empty-handed. If there's anyone you're familiar with, just tell me and Master will think of a way to assign them to you. He'll even find some powerhouses to protect you. Lu Yin opened his mouth wanting to say something. Kai Shu slapped him hard on the shoulder again, almost breaking him apart. This guy was an emissary. Long 7, don't forget the oath you made back then. Master told me, I serve the poor and humble and I don't ask for any military exploits. I just want to do what I can for my people and fight against the enemy from outside. You were the one who said that, weren't you? Lu Yin was speechless. For the greater good of humanity, I'm willing to die 10,000 deaths. You were the one who said that, right? Kai Shu asked again. Lu Yin was still speechless. Since that's the case, Master will give you a chance. Let's see how far you can go as the acting sect master. Do your best and don't hold back, said Kai Shu heroically. He was a refined scholar, so it was strange for him to act so heroically. Lu Yin wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Why did he feel like he had screwed himself over? Wasn't that too full of himself? By the way, Master has already convened a meeting of the 9 sects leaders. When the time comes, he will formally introduce you. Make a list of names in the next few days. This trip to the humble Huayan sect will be more comfortable for our own people. I know. Do your best to prepare, said Kai Shu before leaving. Lu Yin facepalmed. This was going to be troublesome. Xianxia had made him the acting headmaster and had even sent an expert to monitor him. There had to be something going on, and it had to be related to the witch spirit god that he had revealed. Lu Yin suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Xianxia couldn't be thinking of using him as bait to lure out the witch spirit god, could she? Why did he think that he could fish out the witch spirit god? He tried to recall what had happened and what he had said, but even after a long time he still couldn't understand. If he was really used as bait to catch the witch spirit, that would be terrible. Then the bodyguard that Xianxia assigned to him was probably not simple. Should he leave as soon as possible? Although the process was different, the results were the same. He was already in Huayan and he wasn't far from the place where the light couldn't be seen. It was better to leave as soon as possible and investigate the Lu family later. Jupiter was a passage and he could come back after he was fully prepared. It would be easier to investigate if he changed his appearance. When he thought of this, Lu Yin relaxed and decided to slip away. He no longer had any misgivings. After thinking about it for a while, he gave Kai Shu a list of people who would be going to Huayuan with him. The first was Wang Dashui, since they had worked together before. If he wanted to slip away, he couldn't be too obvious. He had to find someone to cover for him, and the white fatty seemed to be having a hard time recently. The second was Lu Tianmu, the third was Xia Taili, and the fourth was Shangqing. True and false, false and true. He wanted to bring Shangqing and Lu Tianmu back to the fifth mainland, while Xia Taili and the white fatty would be a distraction. If everything went smoothly, he would be able to return to the fifth mainland after some time. Lu Yin was a little tired. This region of space was filled with powerhouses, and the fifth mainland was still better. There weren't many enlighters in the outerverse, and there weren't many emissaries in the innerverse either. Even in the neoverse, there were many powerhouses, and Lu Yin had enough treasures on him to survive. Here, an emissary could casually appear from the central realm, and there was no need to talk about the top realm. Even Long Kuei had been ordered to run errands. In the lower realm, Lu Yin thought about the giant anteater and the ancestral Mang, and he felt a chill run down his spine. He had to go back first. This was his top priority. Since Lu Yin had given the list, it meant that he had accepted the mission. Qianxia appeared in front of him. "Greetings, Senior." Although Lu Yin was unhappy that Qianxia might be using him as bait, he was still very respectful. Qianxia's attitude was gentle. Long 7, the position of the humble school sect master is very important. Do you know how many people are eyeing this position, whether in the central realm or the four cardinal scales? I've taken a risk to give this position to you, so don't disappoint me. Lu Yin grinned. Yes, I won't let you down. Qianxia was satisfied. Your cultivation is limited, and most of the humble school's missions are dangerous, so I've decided to have Kai Shu follow you and protect you. Lu Yin looked up anxious. Qianxia wanted to monitor him. Senior, I'm confident that I can protect myself, and I have many treasures that were given to me by Longxi. They're enough to block the attacks of emissaries. Qianxia laughed. So what? You can only block the attack. What's the point of this old man letting you be the sect master? What this old man wants is to capture the red back, capture the traitor of humanity, not beat the grass to scare the snake. Are you sure you can capture the emissary? Guantong and Guanhai are the most obvious examples. If I don't go to Huayuan, then you'll be silenced by Guantong. Lu Yin was speechless. He could beat Guantong to a pulp, but he couldn't say that out loud. Senior, I'm not used to being followed. He still had to try his best. Qianxia smiled. I know that you have the ability to see through people and obtain information that others can't. Don't worry, Kai Shu won't keep an eye on you. He'll only be a short distance away from you. As long as you're not in danger, he won't appear and will never interfere with your actions in the humble school. Although he belongs to the humble school, his status is far lower than yours, so he has no right to interfere with your decisions. Lu Yin had no other choice. I'll listen to Senior's arrangements. Qianxia grunted. Do you know why I put you in the humble school of Huayuan? There was a vacancy there. Lu Yin said, I've thought about it. It's because the humble school of Huayuan currently doesn't have a sect master. Qianxia laughed. It's because the humble school of Huayuan is too important, so important that it can't be casually appointed. Lu Yin didn't understand. Qianxia seriously explained, the next day after Guantong was captured, a sect master wanted to transfer to the humble school of Huayuan. Even if the humble school of Huayuan lost 3 experts, they still wanted to become its sect master. The humble school of Huayuan is much more important than you think because it contains the cloud ladder. Lu Yin immediately searched his mind for information about the cloud ladder, but there was very little information. When he had merged with some people, he had indeed obtained information about the cloud ladder, but he hadn't paid much attention to it. The cloud ladder connects the top realm and the middle realm. Although the Bifrost Bridge can also connect the two, there are essential differences between the two. You'll understand in the future. In short, when you go to the Huayuan School of Huayuan, visit the cloud ladder more often. I hope that there aren't any redbacks or spies there. If there are, find them for me. I'll give you double the merit, Qianxia said solemnly. Lu Yin respectfully replied, yes, this junior understands. You've provided information over the past few days and captured some spies. Combined with your previous rewards, you've received a total of 6 merit points. Don't think it's too little since the other rewards are quite generous. As long as you work hard in the humble school of Huaiyuan, you'll receive more and more merit points. Lu Yin didn't care too much about the merit points. He had originally wanted them to exchange for the righteous medal, and it would be best if he could obtain the tree medal. That way he would have some protection after retirement. But now it was difficult to retire, and he had become the acting sect master of the humble school of Huaiyun. He didn't need the protection of the tree medal, and no one would dare to touch him unless they had a good reason. A day later, Xianxia convened a meeting of the 9 gates, and Lu Yin formally met the leaders of the 9 gates. Aside from the humble Huaiyuan school and Zhou Xian from the Yin mountain region, the leaders of the other 7 were unfamiliar to Lu Yin. However, he knew that they were all experts above the level of envoys. This is the new acting sect master of the humble school of Huaiyun Long 7, Xianxia introduced. 8 Cloud Connect stones appeared in front of Lu Yin, and the images of the 8 sect masters appeared on them. Junior Long 7 greets the seniors, Lu Yin said politely. His attitude was humble, and his expression was solemn with a hint of apprehension and anticipation. It was obvious that he was looking forward to the future. He was an ambitious young man and he also seemed very honest. Kid, do you know that in the history of our humble school, there has never been a hunter who became a sect master? One of the sect masters spoke up. It was a woman and she was very flirtatious. Lu Yin felt his mouth go dry with a single glance as she was simply too alluring. If Madame Naylan was the type of woman who was naturally seductive, then this woman was a classic example of seduction, and she was also capable of seducing everyone. Lu Yin glanced at her clothes and he felt that they were indecent. I know that I am not qualified, so I would like to learn from the seniors. I hope that the seniors will not be stingy with their guidance. I would be eternally grateful, Lu Yin said respectfully. The woman chuckled again and her red lips parted. Come play at the Bifrost when you have time. I'll be waiting for you there, but I'm afraid that you won't be able to handle it. Lu Yin was stunned and then he laughed dryly. The woman was very happy. Zhou Xian stared at Lu Yin in shock. He had become a sect master just like that. Wasn't this too much of a joke? How had he done it? He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he racked his brains. Lu Yin looked at Zhou Xian and smiled. We meet again, fourth uncle. Zhou Xian nodded and looked deeply at Lu Yin. Do your best. Lu Yin nodded. Understood. Chapter 1454. The others did not have much to say to Lu Yin, as Xianxia must have already discussed this with them. Otherwise, how could a Hunter Realm Junior have such a reaction? Alright, Long 7, time is of the essence. Kai Shu is already waiting for you outside and I'll take you to the humble Huayan sect. From now on, you are the acting sect master of the humble Huayan sect. These seniors will teach you what to do in the future, but I hope that you will remove the word acting as soon as possible. Do you understand? Xianxia asked. Lu Yin's expression changed and he slowly bowed. This junior will not disappoint the seniors. He paused for a moment before continuing. This subordinate will not disappoint the superintendent. Xianxia gestured for him to leave. After Lu Yin left, an elder asked, Superintendent, is this useful? Our humble school was originally established to ferret out the 7 sky gods, but after so many years they are still living freely. Can this kid really fish out the shaman spirit god? Xianxia sighed. He's the only one who came into contact with Guan Yun's scarlet token, and the shaman spirit god can sense his aura. The humble Huayan sect is located in a special location, and the shaman spirit god will not give up. With the shaman spirit god's methods, even Kai Shu's personal protection will be useless, someone else said. Xianxia replied, I know. They had already discussed this with Xianxia, but Xianxia's attitude had not changed. Zhou Xi's eyes flashed. Using Long 7 as bait to fish out the shaman spirit god was too easy. This was one of the 7 sky gods, and even now no one knew the true strength of the 7 sky gods. The humble school was just a joke to them. He looked in the direction that Lu Yin had left as Long 7 was in danger. He was like a signpost and the shaman spirit god would definitely discover him. Elsewhere, Lu Yin saw Kai Shu. She smiled. From now on I'm your bodyguard, Long 7. Lu Yin smiled bitterly. Senior, please don't make fun of this junior. Kai Shu smiled. This isn't a joke. You're the sect master of the humble school and you represent the humble school. Nothing can happen to you. Let's go to the Huaiyuan sect. She then took out a piece of paper from her cosmic ring and began to fold it. Lu Yin raised his brows when he saw the white paper. This was it. He had found more than 200 pieces of paper in Long Tian and the others' cosmic rings, but he had no idea how to use them. He watched as Kai Shu slowly folded the paper until it formed a small boat that was a few meters long. She boarded the boat and looked at Lu Yin. Come on, let's go. Shouldn't a piece of paper the size of a palm be smaller when folded? How could it become bigger? It was amazing. Long Tian and the others had more or less blank sheets of paper, which meant that these things weren't very precious. They were definitely common knowledge, so Lu Yin didn't ask. The small boat folded by Ji flew up and headed in the direction of Huayun. Its speed was quite fast, not much slower than Ho. Lu Yin touched his cosmic ring. These pieces of paper were equivalent to a spacecraft in this universe. But it was more convenient than a spaceship. Senior, how are the people on this junior's list? Lu Yin asked. Kai Shu replied, aside from Xia Taili, everyone else is fine. Xia Taili can't come? Lu Yin was secretly delighted. That girl had been a smokescreen all along. Kai Shu replied, she's still the princess of the Xia family. Xia Shenfei is currently trapped in the sovereign realm, and the Xia family won't let anything happen to Xia Taili. Whether or not she can come to Huayuan will depend on the Xia family's arrangements. Lu Yin feigned disappointment. We worked together quite well in the sovereign realm. It would be a pity if she couldn't come. Kai Shu looked at Lu Yin with a smile. Is that the only reason? Lu Yin replied, of course. Kai Shu shook her head. You don't have to hide it from me. I know that you want to use Xia Taili's status as the princess of Shenwu Plain. That's a good idea. With Xia Taili on your side, you'll be able to do many things more easily. However, I have to remind you not to use her. She's not stupid, and Shenwu Plain won't allow a son-in-law of the White Dragon clan to use their princess. You have to be careful. Lu Yin blinked. That seemed to be the case, but he had never thought about it. He had just used Xia Taili as a cover. The reason he had chosen Xia Taili over Wu Taibai was because Lu Yin had always been wary of this person. Xia Taili was clearly from Shenwu Plain, but he had betrayed it. He had even taken the martial ancestor as his master on the 6th mainland and imprinted on the martial ancestor. During the battle in the meditative ruins, he had not used his imprint. He had hidden too much. The more he acted like this, the more Lu Yin felt uneasy. He was not even as good as Xia Taili. But would Xia Taili be on his side? Lu Yin licked his lips. Maybe, probably, but definitely not. While Lu Yin was following Kai Shu to the Huayuan plains, Wang Dashui was being held captive on the Wang family's junior progenitor planet. He was tied to a bridge that connected the planet to Wangyu, and he was swinging back and forth as he screamed in pain. I didn't do it on purpose, no. Save me, junior progenitor, please come back. Wang Dashui's screams pitted many, but of course, there were even more who took pleasure in his misfortune. A ruffian from the Wang family had somehow managed to find 2 experts to accompany the junior progenitor to the sovereign realm. He had ascended to the heavens in a single step and had even been given the privilege of choosing experts for the junior progenitor. That had been the peak of Wang Dashui's life. He, Yuqin, Xia Taili and Long Shi had stood on the bridge together and looked down on many experts. It could be said that their names had spread throughout the astral tree. However, fate loved to joke around. Wang Dashui had been looking forward to the junior progenitor's return and his own advancement, but what he had received instead was the fact that Wu Taibai and Wu Taibai were stowaways. He had been dumbfounded and felt as if the sky had collapsed. His brain had turned to mush, and by the time he had reacted he was already tied up under the bridge. I really didn't know. Save me. Wang Dashui screamed. In the distance, Nong Sanyong rolled her eyes and sighed. It was useless to shout for help. Who asked this fatty to find 2 stowaways at once? How interesting. If she didn't know this guy's background, she wouldn't have believed that he wasn't a stowaway. The ups and downs of life were just that fast. In the ancestral gazing tower, many experts who had been eliminated by Wang Dashui cheered. They were glad that they hadn't gone to the sovereign realm back then. After a while, on the junior progenitor planet, an expert dragged Wang Dashui up and said with a cold expression, "There are orders from the family. Quickly report to the humble school of Huayuan. From now on you will be a member of the humble school of Huayuan." Wang Dashui was still in shock, and when he heard this he was confused. The humble school of Huayuan? The first thing he thought of was the three Guan brothers. Could it be that they had been cleared of being a redback? He knew that Long Seven was unreliable. He was the master of the humble school of Huayan, so how could he be a redback? It was over. Wang Dashui had fought with the humble school of Huayuan before. Right, Wu Taibai was Long Seven's old friend, and Wu Taibai was from the humble school of Huayun. It was all related to Long Seven. Long Seven was a bastard. How could Wang Dashui treat him as a brother? This universe was full of scams. The era of brotherhood was gone forever. I'm not going. I don't want to go. Wang Dashui immediately shouted. He wanted to tie himself up and jump off the bridge. He would rather wander around here than go to the humble school of Huayun. Any random mission there could end his life. You don't have a choice. Scram. The person dragged Wang Dashui up and threw him out. There were people from the humble school waiting outside. On the junior progenitor planet, Xia Taili was shocked. What? You want me to join the humble school of Huayuan? Who said that? Is there something wrong with their head? Do I need to go? There was an old woman in front of Xia Taili. She smiled and respectfully said, Long Seven has been appointed as the acting master of the humble school of Huayan. He said that he would bring a few acquaintances with him who could assist him, so he wrote down your name. Of course, you don't have to go if you don't want to. Xia Taili's mouth fell open in shock. Long Seven? The acting master of the humble school of Huayuan? Long Seven? Yes, Long Seven, the old woman replied. Xia Taili was speechless. The son-in-law of the White Dragon clan's main bloodline? Long Seven? The old woman nodded again. Isn't he a hunter? What kind of sect master is he? Who asked him to be? Did you hear wrong? He's a gatekeeper, not a sect master, Xia Taili asked strangely. The old woman coughed. Absolutely. He's the acting master of the humble school of Huayun Long Seven. Xia Taili felt like she had seen a ghost. She had thought that Long Shi's disappearance meant that Long Seven would be isolated and helpless in the White Dragon clan. He would also have to face the retaliation of some people from the frigid Immortal sect, which would make his life miserable. She had never expected that this guy would become the master of the humble school of Huayan in the blink of an eye. Even the fourth young ancestor would at most be the humble school's chief of battle. There was still a considerable distance between him and the position of schoolmaster. To put it nicely, this was the position of a feudal official, in charge of the lives and deaths of countless people. It was perfectly justifiable to frame someone. Wait, justifiable? Xia Taili's eyes lit up. Framing, retaliation, framing. All sorts of words appeared in her mind, and the more she thought about it, the more excited she became. She had never played such games before, so she clapped her hands. Let's go to the humble school of Huayuan. The old woman was shocked. You want to go? Actually, you don't have to go. No one can force you. Xia Taili rolled her eyes. Long Seven is an old friend of mine. How can I not go when an old friend is asking for help? How disloyal. Hurry up and send me to Huayuan. The old woman hurriedly nodded. On planet Frigid Immortal's junior ancestor, Shang-Qing faced an elder from the Frigid Immortal sect and answered his questions word by word. Ever since he had returned to planet Frigid Immortal's junior ancestor, he had been asked the same question every 2 days. It was all because he was from the nest and was looked down upon. Before the trip to the sovereign realm, everyone had been polite to him because Bai Xiaohong relied on him. Now that Bai Xiaohong was trapped, everyone's attitude towards him was completely different. The junior ancestor was fighting with someone in the Oblivion ruins. Why didn't you help? Asked the elder from the Frigid Immortal sect solemnly. I had an opponent as well. It was someone called Zhou Xian. Every time he attacked, he wanted to kill me. His spiritual energy attacks were extremely powerful. Shang-Qing answered in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Didn't you know he was a stowaway? I didn't. Didn't you suspect him? No. Did the junior ancestor have any orders for you? No. We all had our own opponents. How did Dong He die? I didn't see him. Shang-Qing could only answer one question after another. He had already met a few important people from the Frigid Immortal sect, but none of them had been able to thoroughly investigate his identity. After all, he was from the nest. Chapter 1455. The more they couldn't find out, the more suspicious they became. However, there was one thing they couldn't deny. If Xianxia had followed Zhou Xian back then, he could have left without Shan Guang or Heaven's emergence. After all, the trip to the sovereign realm had already ended. Because of this, they believed that Xianxia wasn't a stowaway and that he was only asking questions to report to the sect's higher-ups. To put it bluntly, he was pretending to care about Bai Xiaohong's safety. After a while, the elder stopped asking questions and stared at Xianxia. He relaxed and asked, "Have you heard of the humble school?" Xianxia was surprised, as this was the first time someone had asked him such a question. "Yes. From now on, you will join the humble school of Huayuan and assist their acting sect master Long Qi. Of course, you can choose not to go and wait for the junior ancestor to return." Xianxia's expression didn't change, but his heart was in turmoil. Acting sect master Long Qi? Isn't that Lu Yin? What's going on? How many days has it been? Princess Long Qi had clearly been taken into Mount Supreme, which was equivalent to disappearing. Instead of being miserable, this guy had become the acting sect master? Even though Xianxia had been trained by the Hall of Honor since he was young and was very knowledgeable, he still couldn't figure out how Lu Yin had done it. Could this guy really be related to the White Dragon tribe? Xianxia was starting to doubt the authenticity of Lu Yin's identity. Xianxia didn't respond, and the elder assumed that he didn't want to go. "The sect wants you to go." Xianxia was stunned and asked, "Why?" "I want to wait for the junior ancestor to return. The junior ancestor has agreed to let me make a name for myself in the frigid Immortal sect." The elder no longer doubted Xianxia, and his gaze softened as if he was looking at one of his own. "We already know how you feel about the junior ancestor, but even if the junior ancestor returns, he will still want you to go to the humble school of Huayuan. You should know how the junior ancestor feels about Long Qi. Didn't Miss Yuchen tell you?" Xianxia shook his head. The elder explained patiently, "The junior ancestor admires Princess Long Qi, but she married Long Qi, so Long Qi is a thorn in the junior ancestor's side. If you can help the junior ancestor get rid of him, the junior ancestor will be very happy." Xianxia's eyes brightened and he seemed to be tempted. The elder wanted to say something, but at that moment, Yuchen arrived and respectfully said, "Elder Shizi, can I have a chat with Brother Xianxia?" Only then did Xianxia know that this elder's surname was Shizi. He didn't know much about the frigid Immortal sect, but judging from Yuchen's appearance, this Shizi elder's position must be very high. It should be known that ordinary elders would be very respectful to Yuchen, but this Shizi elder was very indifferent. Elder Shizi nodded and didn't move. Yuchen didn't mind. She stood behind Shizi and looked at Xianxia. "Brother Xianxia, do you know Long Qi? We've met in the sovereign world. Are you acquainted with him?" Yuchen asked again. Xianxia thought for a moment. "I saved him on the way back." Yuchen frowned. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Xianxia frowned. "Why should I say that? We're just withered creatures that fought together. If we don't help each other, we won't be able to walk away." Yuchen's eyes flashed. "Did Long Qi say anything to you?" Xianxia shook his head. Yuchen muttered to herself for a moment, then smiled at Xianxia. "What do you think of the junior ancestor?" Xianxia's eyes widened. "I want to join the cold Immortal sect." On the other side, Elder Shizi smiled faintly. His gaze towards Xianxia became more and more amiable. Xianxia's heart belonged to the cold Immortal sect, and his eyes were filled with admiration and longing. He had seen this kind of gaze many times, but Xianxia was different because he was qualified to go to the sovereign realm. Yuchen asked a few more questions, but Xianxia couldn't answer them fluently. He even thought about a few of the questions. However, the more he acted like this, the less suspicious Yuchen would be. It would be strange if he could answer fluently. "Brother Xianxia, Elder Shizi just said that if you can help the junior ancestor get rid of Long Qi, the junior ancestor will be very happy to return. Are you willing?" Xianxia didn't understand. If Long Qi is opposing the junior ancestor, why did he ask me to go to the humble Huayuan sect? If you can think of it, he might not have. Yuchen smiled. "No matter what his reason is, just go. Tell me his whereabouts and I'll tell you what to do." Xianxia nodded. "All right, I understand." Not long after, Xianxia was also taken away from Junior Ancestor Planet. Yuchen looked in the direction of the Middle Realm and could almost see Xianxia's back. "You don't trust him?" Elder Shizi asked. Yuchen replied respectfully, "Under normal circumstances, Long Qi wouldn't look for the cold Immortal sect or anyone close to it." "Then why did he look for him?" Elder Shizi was confused. Yuchen frowned. I don't know either. The only explanation is that Long Qi isn't worried that Shangqing will help us threaten him. The two of them either knew each other before or something happened in the sovereign world that tied their interests together. If that's the case, then Shangqing won't be of any use, Elder Shizi said. Yuchen smiled. Even if he's an enemy, he's still useful. Elder Shizi looked at Yuchen in surprise. You think of Shangqing as an enemy? Yuchen didn't deny it. She was used to thinking of the worst-case scenario. Just as she said, even if Shangqing helped Long Qi, it didn't matter. She was confident that she could get useful information from Shangqing. Moreover, Shangqing didn't have to know about it to deal with Long Qi. Even if they didn't know about it, they still had their ways of doing it. On White Dragon Junior Ancestor Planet, Lu Tianmu was also notified and immediately headed to the humble Huayuan school to assist Long Qi. When Lu Tianmu received the news, she was at a loss. She didn't even know how Lu Yin had done it. She stared into the distance, wondering how to leave White Dragon Junior Progenitor Planet, but Lu Yin had already taken her away. This person really had a way of getting anywhere. The humble Huayuan school was one of the 9 schools of the Middle Realm, and it was also the humble school that had the closest relationship with Lu Yin. Speaking of which, the Yin Mountain District was a habitat for Lu Yin, while the humble Huayuan school was more like a meritorious service. He had exposed all the spies that he had learned from Guanyun's memories, and now that he was here, he didn't know how to perform any meritorious service in the short term. However, he had never thought of performing any meritorious service. What was the point of that? What he wanted was to slip away, and the right way to do so was to wait for the others to arrive. He looked up at Kai Shu, who was in front of him. She was his biggest obstacle. The humble Huayuan school is almost there, Kai Shu reminded him. Lu Yin looked past her back and saw the strange scenery in the distance. The humble Huayuan school was surrounded by ring-shaped rivers that seemed to reach the heavens. Every river seemed to be pulled up into the sky by something, and there were islands and all sorts of creatures living within the rivers. Naturally, there were humble schools as well. Of the 9 schools of the Middle Realm, the strongest was the humble school of Huayuan. This was because it had been the only humble school of Huayuan that had possessed 2 envoys. Of the other 8 schools, only the school of Huayuan had been envoys. This was one of the main reasons why Guantong had been able to secure his position as school of Huayuan's humble school of Huayuan. The humble school of Huayuan had gone from being the strongest to being the weakest. Lu Yin didn't need to guess to know that those from the humble school of Huayuan were definitely unhappy. They had been hoping for someone to take over the position of school of Huayuan, but they had never expected that it would be a rookie hunter. To the majority of the humble school of Huayuan, hunters were considered rookies. They couldn't even become leaders, let alone school of Huayuan. The moment he saw the humble school of Huayuan, Lu Yin's inkstone trembled in shock. This was actually the command authority of the humble school of Huayuan. At the bottom of the page, there was a mission for the humble school of Huayuan's inkstone. Was he still considered a member of the 14th school? Lu Yin was at a loss. Since Owl had given him a mission and supported him so much, then he should still be a member of the 14th school. The humble school of Huayuan's headquarters was located at the intersection of the intertwining rivers, which happened to be halfway down the river. There was an island that was submerged in the water and isolated by a giant bubble. There were nearly 1,000 humble school cultivators there, and anyone who wanted to join the humble school of Huayuan had to be specially recruited and recommended. The other way was to walk to the island from below. There were many creatures in the river, and there was no lack of powerful creatures that were as majestic as the humble school. When Lu Yin arrived, all of the cultivators from the humble school of Huayuan's headquarters came out to greet him. No matter how dissatisfied they were with a rookie hunter, they did not dare to express their dissatisfaction due to the rules of the humble school. Lu Yin looked up and saw the water flow that was isolated by the bubble. The water flowed back into outer space, and from time to time, there would be giant creatures passing by. The sound of flowing water was quite pleasant to listen to, and it was truly a strange place. As he thought about it, he looked at the 1,000 pairs of eyes staring at him and smiled. I'm Long 7, the acting humble school of Huayuan's superintendent. Greetings, sect master. Over 1,000 cultivators bowed in unison. Among them there were nearly 10 enlighters, and there were also quite a few hunters, cruisers and explorers. Even the servants were limiters. Any one of these people could act arrogantly in the outside world, and they represented the humble school of Huayuan. No one dared to offend them and they all bowed to Lu Yin. Even if the average person did not act complacent, they would still be a little proud of themselves. After all, Lu Yin was just a hunter. However, this was nothing to Lu Yin. He was the master of the outer verse and was in charge of 72 weaves. What had he not seen before? He had even overturned the day-night flow zone, let alone the people in front of him. Without the three Guan brothers, the most powerful person in the humble school of Huayuan was just an enlighter with a power level of over 400,000. However, that was still too weak in Lu Yin's eyes. Any one of the experts from the ruler's realm could easily deal with everyone here. Of course, this was just one of the 9 gates in the central realm. Under normal circumstances, there would be at least 9 emissaries, and with Qingchen, who was a half-step progenitor, the central realm would have an enormous amount of power. It was not something that the day-night flow zone could compare to. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Lu Yin allowed everyone to continue with what they were doing. The man with the strongest aura walked up to Lu Yin and respectfully said, "Greetings, sect master. Your subordinate, Blind Chen, is here to show you around the headquarters and hand over all authority." Thank you, brothers, for your support. Chapter 1456. Blind Chen. Lu Yin was puzzled. "You can't see?" Blind Chen replied, "My eyes can see but my heart can't." Lu Yin rolled his eyes and pretended to be deep in thought. "Speak clearly. Everyone in the humble Huayuan sect is guilty for failing to recognize the Guan brothers as redbacks," Blind Chen said in a low voice. Lu Yin shook his head. "It has nothing to do with you. Redbacks wouldn't be redbacks if you could see through them so easily. Right, get to work." "Yes, I will transfer the authority of the headquarters to you," Blind Chen said. These people from the humble Huayuan sect were not as difficult to deal with as Lu Yin had imagined. He was overthinking things. No matter how dissatisfied they were, they had to suppress it in their hearts. They had to carry out Lu Yin's orders meticulously. This was the rule of the humble sect. It could be considered a family rule. Water flowed through the starry sky and the light came from the sun in the sky. Similarly, there was also night here. The night of the humble sect of Huayuan was beautiful. The dim light reflected on the water and spilled onto the island through the water. It was quite a hazy beauty. Lu Yin looked at the past of the humble sect of Huayuan and sighed. He had finally become the acting leader of the sect. In the intelligence network of the humble sect of Huayuan, Lu Yin found a Yudai. Yudai was a spy that Yu Qin had planted in various large organizations. Lu Yin had once entered the body of the old man who had been protecting Yu Qin, and through reading his memories he had learned how to contact and identify Yudai. Now he had actually found a Yudai here. Yu Chen's methods were ruthless, and she had even planted a Yudai in the humble school of the Huayuan Plains. Lu Yin suddenly thought of the Yin Mountain District. If it wasn't for the fact that the Yin Mountain District was too lazy and was a gold-plated place, there would definitely be a Yudai there as well. He still felt a lingering fear when he thought of this. Fortunately, he had been assigned to the Yin Mountain District, or else he might have been schemed against by Yu Qin in the other 8 gates. In the distance, Kai Shu looked at Lu Yin and then closed her eyes to rest. Just as Qingchen had said, he did not interfere with any of the humble sect of Huayuan or any of Lu Yin's decisions. He was just a bodyguard. More like a monitor. Lu Yin thought about how to get rid of him. Just like that, a peaceful life began. In the following days he wandered around the headquarters of the humble Huayuan school, getting to know more of his subordinates and familiarizing himself with the roads. He was actually quite familiar with this place since he hadn't read Guan Yun's memories for nothing. A few days later, Lu Yin saw a group of people being taken away by Blind Chen. When he asked about it, Blind Chen replied, "There's a spy among them but I can't tell which one, so I have to interrogate them one by one." Lu Yin's gaze swept across the group. "How did you determine that there's a spy?" The city lord of Wooden Castle had a son who was exceptionally gifted. He went missing recently and these people were the ones who came into contact with the child. The child is either dead or has been taken away to be nurtured as a spy, Blind Chen replied. Lu Yin was curious. Gifted? It has the melting innate skill. It can melt anything it touches, Blind Chen said. Lu Yin nodded and with a wave of his hand the group was taken away. The humble class had its own interrogation methods, but he did not ask about it. He was just a passerby and he never really thought of himself as the master of the humble class of Huayuan. How could he be the master of the humble class with a bodyguard? He was just bait. Lu Tianmu arrived with a cold expression. She did not even smile when she saw Lu Yin, but Lu Yin was very happy to see her. Hey Tianmu, how old are you? He was bored to death. Lu Yin asked casually as he leaned lazily against the wall and watched the water flow above his head. Lu Tianmu stood beside him and answered indifferently, older than you. You're not considered part of the younger generation, right? Lu Tianmu did not deny it. Ever since they had arrived in this part of the universe, they had not been considered part of the younger generation. When are you going to find someone to marry? You're not young anymore, Lu Yin asked, growing even more bored. Lu Tianmu frowned. That's none of your business. Why are you saying that? Lu Yin rolled his eyes. Lu Tianmu did not say anything else. Lu Yin pursed his lips. He had not asked casually, he just wanted Kai Shu to lower her guard. The more relaxed he appeared, the less likely she would be to stare at him. Sometimes when life and death were on the line, a moment of carelessness from Kai Shu might allow them to escape. Unfortunately, Lu Tianmu did not cooperate. Smile a little or you won't be able to get married, Lu Yin said. Lu Tianmu did not say anything as she could not be bothered with him. Then the second person arrived. It was Xianxia. Lu Yin felt slightly better when he saw the current Xianxia. In the past, Xianxia had always been surrounded by 3 streams of energy, making him look like a deity. Now he was much better and at least he seemed more grounded. Yichen asked me a lot of questions on the way here. She definitely doesn't trust me, Xianxia said as soon as he saw Lu Yin. Lu Yin shrugged. Nonsense, I transferred someone close to the frigid Immortal sect. It would be strange if she trusted you. Then why did you transfer me here? Aren't you afraid of being investigated? Xianxia was puzzled. Lu Yin replied, I have my own plans and Yichen will definitely contact you. Just report whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Xianxia nodded. Then like Lu Tianmu he stood there without saying anything. Both of them were taciturn. This situation only improved when Wang Dashui arrived. Brother. Good brother. The moment Wang Dashui saw Lu Yin he was so moved that he cried. He had completely forgotten how he had cursed Lu Yin back on Junior Progenitor Planet. Lu Yin saw the fatty rushing towards him and wanted to dodge, but he hesitated and ended up being hugged by the fatty. Bro, you don't know how I've suffered. I've suffered so much. I was hung under a bridge and tortured and so many people laughed at me. I don't even know how I'm going to survive in the astral tree realm anymore. Bro, you're really loyal enough to transfer me here. Otherwise, I would have been finished. Wang Dashui was truly venting as he hugged Lu Yin, and it was obvious that he had been greatly wronged. Lu Yin was speechless. He knew that Wang Dashui's misfortune was related to him. Alright brother Wang, it's all in the past. You can stay in the humble Huayuan sect from now on. I'll take care of you, Lu Yin said. The fatty was moved and hugged Lu Yin even tighter. Brother, you're the most loyal. I wasn't wrong about you. You're the best. Lu Yin rolled his eyes and felt even more guilty. He hadn't transferred Wang Dashui over to save him, but rather to confuse Qianchen and the others. He had been thinking of ways to escape Kai Shu's line of sight and escape, and Wang Dashui would probably end up even worse. Lu Yin coughed and patted Wang Dashui's shoulder sympathetically. Brother, I'll follow you wherever you go from now on. We'll share blessings and misfortunes, Wang Dashui announced loudly, startling the passers-by. Lu Tianmu glanced at Wang Dashui from nearby. She glanced at Wang Dashui, her eyes filled with silent sympathy. She rarely sympathized with anyone, but Wang Dashui had crossed the line. First, he had been scammed by Obscurus and Heaven's Emergence. Now he was about to be scammed by Lu Yin. This fatty was truly unfortunate. Xianxia thought the same, and the more she looked at the fatty, the more she sympathized with him. When Wang Dashui arrived at the humble school of Huayun, Lu Yin's surroundings were bustling with noise and excitement. He used his specialty and became familiar with many people in the humble school of Huayuan in just 2 days. Although many people were dissatisfied with Lu Yin, they couldn't resist Wang Dashui's enthusiasm and friendliness. Wang Dashui also told Lu Yin many things about the humble school of Huayun. Brother, the latter is the most noteworthy place in this area. It connects the top realm and the middle realm. Anyone from the middle realm who wants to go to the top realm has to take the ladder. The Bifrost Bridge is too far. Did you know that the Misty Cloud sect contributes a large sum of money to the humble Huayun sect every year? The fatty whispered to Lu Yin. Lu Yin was curious. Contribute? What? The fatty looked around and saw that Lu Tianmu and Shangqing weren't too far away from them. He said sneakily, I don't know the details, but I heard that many things that can't be brought to the top realm from the middle realm have to go through the ladder. The humble Huayuan sect has the right to inspect everything. The Misty Cloud sect is probably worried that the humble Huayuan sect will cause trouble, so they contribute a large sum every year. How large is it? Lu Yin was interested. The fatty shook his head. I don't know, but I estimate that it's no less than 100 million star essence. Lu Yin was shocked. That much? 100 million star essence every year? What kind of concept was that? That was only for the humble Huayuan school, and the majority of it would be given to the four-way scales in the Misty Cloud sect itself. In other words, the cloud ladder could bring the Misty Cloud sect hundreds of millions or even billions of star essence every year. This is just star essence. To an emissary, star essence isn't of much use. What they need are strange objects, and the Misty Cloud sect definitely gives the Guan brothers some strange objects every year. That's why the humble Huayan school doesn't check the cloud ladders very often, the fatty explained enthusiastically. Wondrous items. Lu Yin knew that envoy's cultivation was different from ordinary cultivators. Ordinary cultivators needed to absorb star energy and circulate it within their bodies, but envoys used astral sources. Astral sources could only be absorbed within the astral source universe, and they were similar to origin tribulations. Anyone who tried to absorb astral sources would suffer a backlash from the astral source universe. Thus, envoys were very careful when they entered the astral source universe to cultivate, as they were afraid of causing too much of a commotion and causing a backlash. Many envoys used all sorts of methods to conceal their own auras, increase the speed at which they absorbed astral sources, or resist the backlash from the astral source universe. These items that could help envoys absorb astral sources were collectively known as wondrous items. In fact, if an envoys used these items to help them resist the backlash from the astral source universe, they could also be called wondrous items. Wondrous items were just a general concept. Brother, as the acting sect master, it's time for you to make a trip to the Misty Cloud sect and finalize the amount they're offering each year, the fatty urged. Lu Yin was tempted. The Misty Cloud sect was a power that was not to be trifled with in the Central Plain. They might not be as powerful as the Sword Steel's Lu family or the Seed Garden Farmer's family, but they were not weak either. Yun Tingting, who had helped Bai Xiaohong, was also from the Misty Cloud sect. I'm going to talk to them just like that? That's not a good idea, Lu Yin muttered. The fatty replied, why don't we go take a look at the ladder first? That made sense, and Lu Yin looked at the fatty in admiration. This fatty's brain worked pretty quickly. Although he said that he was going to take a look at the ladder, he was actually looking for trouble. The bigger the trouble, the more the Misty Cloud sect would have a headache and the greater the contribution they would give him. Chapter 1457. The biggest difference between him and the Guan brothers was that he wasn't afraid of things getting out of hand. The bigger the situation, the better. As bait, he had to act as bait. No matter how big the situation got, Qingchen would deal with it. If he couldn't deal with it, then he could take the opportunity to escape. Thinking about this, Lu Yin was even more tempted. How about it? Are we leaving? The fatty seemed even more tempted than Lu Yin. Let's wait for one more person. Who? Lu Yin looked up. Her. The fatty raised his head and saw Xia Tyli slowly walking over with a smile on her face. He was shocked. Why is she here? Lu Yin also felt uncomfortable. He hadn't expected Xia Tyli to really come. She had nothing better to do, and instead of waiting for Xia Shenfei on Junior Ancestor Planet, she actually had the time to come to the humble school of Huayun. Brother-in-law, you're still the most loyal one. You didn't forget me even after you took over. Thank you, Xia Tyli smiled at Lu Yin. Lu Yin smiled. I didn't expect you to have the time to come. Xia Tyli smiled happily. Of course, I've always been interested in the humble school. Plus, you're now the master of the humble school of Huayun. How is it? Do you have any targets to capture? If you have any suspicions, you can capture them first. Lu Yin saw the excitement in Xia Tyli's eyes and his eyes flashed. Yes, come with me. Xia Tyli's eyes lit up. Really? All right, let's go, don't let the targets escape. The fatty followed closely behind Lu Yin. Lu Tianmu and Shangqing followed not too far away. Kai Shu watched them leave the headquarters of the humble school of Huayuan and head in the direction of the ladder. She quickly followed them and looked up at the mother tree, recalling what her master had said. There was a huge darkness there, but what kind of darkness was it? The humble school of Huayuan's location was special because it covered the ladder, and Huayuan was directly below the entrance to the upper realm. Anyone who wanted to use the ladder to enter the upper realm would have to come to Huayuan, so the humble school of Huayuan had the right to capture and interrogate anyone. This was also the main reason why the Smoke Cloud sect had to contribute to the humble school of Huayuan. The cloud ladders were pieces of land formed by the strange smoke. Every once in a while a piece of cloud land would move toward the top realm. There were thousands of such cloud lands in the area of the cloud ladders, and each cloud land could carry dozens to hundreds of people. Below the cloud ladder, countless people lined up, waiting to ascend the cloud continent and enter the top realm. There were even more people trying to apply to enter the top realm. Although the top realm was where the four sides of balance were located, it did not mean that there were only people from the four sides of balance. There were also various cities there that required servants and servants. There were also dangerous mountains and unfathomable seas that required people to explore. The four sides of balance only occupied less than half of the top realm. The other half had to be inhabited. At the same time, there were also quite a number of people who wanted to join the four-way scales or become disciples of the four-way scales. To the people of the middle world, entering the top world was an honor. For this, they would pay a huge price. This price was also one of the sources of income for the Smoke Cloud sect. Lu Yin's group got closer and closer to the cloud ladder. Half of it hung in the air while the other half was connected to the main trunk of the mother tree. In other words, getting closer to the cloud ladder was also getting closer to the main trunk of the mother tree. Every time he saw the main trunk of the mother tree that connected the sky and the earth, Lu Yin was shocked. How could a tree grow so big? This was too exaggerated. He couldn't even see the borders of the main trunk horizontally. It was like an isolated world. There was even a grand battlefield behind the main trunk. The main trunk isolated the battlefield. Is the target we want to capture near the cloud ladder? Xia Taili grew even more excited. She was no stranger to the cloud ladder. Lu Yin looked at the busy cloud ladder and the many Smoke Cloud sect disciples guarding it. He nodded. Is it someone from the Smoke Cloud sect? Xia Taili's eyes lit up. She was even eager to try. Lu Yin was puzzled. You hope it's someone from the Smoke Cloud sect? Xia Taili rolled her eyes. No, I'm just asking. Lu Yin felt that Xia Taili's attitude was strange. He looked at Wang Dashui, who looked confused. Not long after, Lu Yin's group slowly walked past the queue towards one of the cloud landmasses. The people around them looked at them curiously. The queue here was very quiet and solemn. Everyone had to pay a price to enter the top world, and no one wanted to be disqualified because of any mistake. Lu Yin's group was a bit out of place. They quickly attracted the attention of the Smoke Cloud sect cultivators. Originally, these Smoke Cloud sect cultivators were a cut above the rest and ordered everyone around. However, Lu Yin's group's imposing manner made them not dare to casually approach. As a result, Lu Yin's group smoothly arrived at one of the cloud landmasses and stepped onto it. Lu Yin looked at the group of Smoke Cloud sect cultivators in the distance and was puzzled. No one cares about us? Xia Taili raised her head. They must have recognized us. She said indifferently, they were scared by us. Really? That won't do, Lu Yin muttered to himself. He raised a hand and pointed at a Smoke Cloud sect cultivator. It was a small bearded man. You come here. Many cultivators who entered and exited the ladder knew a rule. A guide fee. This guide fee wasn't the price one had to pay to enter the top world. It was a qualification that represented that one could enter the top world. Entering the top world required one to step onto a cloud landmass, so the question was, who would take you there? The cloud landmasses were easy to find since they were right in front of you. However, you couldn't ascend just because you saw them. You had to line up and someone had to tell you which cloud landmass to ascend to. This gave rise to a guide fee that was paid to the person guarding the cloud landmasses, which was the dispatcher. There were over 1,000 cloud landmasses, and depending on the situation they could be integrated or dispersed. All of this depended on the dispatcher. Cultivators who wanted to enter the top world also had to rely on the dispatcher to ascend to the top world. The dispatcher was a very difficult task, or at least that was what the cultivators themselves believed. Only by paying the guide fee would one be allowed to ascend to the top world. Otherwise, one would have to wait. In the past there had been people who hadn't been willing to pay, but those people had believed that they could definitely enter the top world, so there was no need to pay the guide fee. They had waited for a few months, and even if they wanted to pay the guide fee, the dispatcher wouldn't accept it. They had waited for more than a year, and in the end, they had used all sorts of connections to pay the guide fee and enter the top world. Many people knew about this, so the guide fee was necessary. Second Master, are we not going to care about those people? They don't seem to be lining up, a young disciple whispered from behind the bearded man, his gaze somewhat unfriendly. The bearded man barked. There's only one possibility for them to be so brazen. They have a strong backing. Don't worry about them. What if they're just putting on an act? Then they're just unlucky, the bearded man said unhappily. Just as he finished speaking, the leader of the group that they were staring at hooked his finger at the bearded man, indicating for him to go over. The bearded man blinked. Was this person really that arrogant? He was the dispatcher of the Escalade, and although his status wasn't high, his influence was great, especially since he had a backer in the Smoke Cloud sect. That person didn't seem to care about him at all. The bearded man wasn't stupid. On the contrary, he was very smart, which was why he had been able to become the dispatcher. He organized his thoughts. No matter where this group of people came from, he couldn't afford to offend them. That was the least he could do. He straightened his clothes and jogged over. Sir, how may I help you? The bearded man arrived in front of Lu Yin and asked with a warm smile. It was obvious that he was a model service worker. Lu Yin was stunned. With this attitude, it wouldn't be easy to cause trouble for him. Wasn't the Smoke Cloud sect very arrogant? The Escalade was like the Astral River Arc, and they controlled the entrance and exit. It was obvious how high their status was. What was going on? Why was this guy so warm towards Lu Yin? Call the person in charge of this area over, Lu Yin said. He had thought that the bearded man's status was too low, so his attitude would change if he called a higher-up. The bearded man smiled even more modestly. I'm the dispatcher of this area. What orders do you have? Isn't the dispatcher Yunyang's lover? Wang Dashui poked his head out and asked curiously. The bearded man's expression changed when he saw Wang Dashui. You're here again? Lu Yin looked at Wang Dashui. This attitude didn't seem right. He seemed to be afraid of something, but he also seemed to be worried about something. Lu Yin thought about how the white fatty kept talking about the Escalade in front of him. Could this fatty have a grudge against the Smoke Cloud sect and was trying to use him? At that moment, a cloud landed beside them and a discordant voice sounded out. Isn't this fatty Wang? How dare you come to my Escalade? Lu Yin and the rest looked over and saw that the speaker was a young man. He was quite handsome, but his face was a little pale. It was obvious that he had been hollowed out by wine and women, and his eyes were practically floating to the sky. He looked down on Lu Yin and the rest. When the bearded man saw the young man, he hurried over and greeted him respectfully. Sir. Wang Dashui shouted, Grandson Yun, I'm here. What are you going to do about it? The young man sneered and looked at Wang Dashui. Nothing. I'm just telling you that this path is blocked. So what if it's blocked? Are you a toilet? Fatty Wang, be careful with your words. This is the Escalade and it belongs to the Smoke Cloud sect. Be careful or I'll throw you out. How dare you? I'm from the Wang family. You think I don't know? You introduced a stowaway to the junior ancestor, and the Wang family is about to remove you from the list. Who will stand up for you? Try me if you dare. Xia Tyli was excited and clenched her fists. She looked like she couldn't wait to argue. Lu Yin nudged her. Who's that guy? Xia Tyli replied excitedly, the young master of the Smoke Cloud sect, Yun Yang. He's also Yun Tingting's cousin and has an extremely high status in the sect. People call him the little overlord of the Escalade. This fatty fought with him back then and caused the Wang family and the Smoke Cloud sect to intervene. That's why he was sent to the Yin Mountain district. Lu Yin understood now. No wonder the fatty had urged him to cause trouble for the Escalade. There was also an old grudge. The little overlord of the Escalade? What an arrogant title.